Chapter 235. Drip, 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 drip. Since the morning, dark clouds had covered the sky. The heavy rain in the morning had stopped for a while in the afternoon, but not long after, it started to drizzle again. The raindrops were like crystal beads hanging from the eaves of the coffee shop, dripping onto the dark green lawn. Contrary to the pale and hazy world in the rain, the coffee shop was very cozy. The chandeliers emitted a pale yellow light, which made the originally cold and lonely air feel unusually warm. She liked the rain very much. She leaned against the booth by the window, staring at the drizzle outside with her big eyes. She was very engrossed. From the back, the girl with her silky smooth and soft hair hanging down to her slender waist, holding her chin, seemed to be a miniature version of a goddess who was thinking about her worries. She looked out of the window, which always made men worry about her. What kind of distance was she thinking about? Of course, the girl just liked to watch the rain. Her father didn't allow her to step on the water outside with her little rain boots, so she could only watch quietly from inside. Yang Yi withdrew his gaze from his daughter and looked at Ding Xiang, who was opening the coffee cans one by one to check if the coffee beans inside were damp. What did you say to me just now? Ding Xiang was checking the coffee beans while talking to Yang Yi. But Yang Yi was so engrossed in watching his daughter that he didn't hear what Ding Xiang said. Brother Yang, I said that Sister Murphy seems to be very popular recently. My roommates in the dormitory are all talking about her. Ding Xiang smiled. But I didn't dare to tell them, because I have to keep it a secret for Sister Murphy. Yang Yi took a piece of paper and a ballpoint pen from the bar counter, and wrote down a sentence that he thought of just now. He asked casually, really? What did you guys talk about? You sit by the window and watch the rain, and the people who watch the rain look at you from behind. The curtain of rain decorates your window, you light up other people's lives. Yang Yi finished writing and looked at it with satisfaction. This was a poem that he had changed based on the current situation. The original work was called Cliffhanger. Of course, it was also very famous, so there was no need for further introduction. However, Yang Yi wanted to change the name of the poem to Daughter. Obviously, the new name was much worse than the original name, so Yang Yi didn't write it. He just admired the 4 lines of words he wrote, then crumpled it into a ball, and threw it into the trash can next to him. They're discussing Sister Murphy's new song. They said that Sister Murphy used to be very powerful, but then, she couldn't do it anymore. Sister Murphy had a hard time, and now that there's a new song out, they think that Sister Murphy has a chance to become popular again. Ding Xiang said. Your roommates also watch TV? Yang Yi's interest was piqued. No, they just saw some reports on the internet, and then said it. However, there are classmates in our class who watched the replay and deliberately learned Sister Murphy's song. They all said that it was written by Mu Xiang. Isn't that you, Brother Yang? Ding Xiang said. Yang Yi nodded. Ding Xiang knew about his other identity, so there was no need to hide it. I think that song, Crossing the Sea to See You, is very good. I just don't know when Sister Murphy will release a new album. When the time comes, Brother Yang will definitely get that disc, right? Then I can play this song in the shop, and the customers will definitely like it. Ding Xiang said excitedly, and even hummed a few words. Although most of the time, the audio equipment in the shop was used by Yang Yi, if Yang Yi was not in the shop, Ding Xiang would also play some soothing music for the customers, so gradually, Ding Xiang also learned to appreciate music. However, she would sing out of tune, and it was the kind of bizarre out of tune that could be used in funny videos. Listening to Ding Xiang humming out of tune, Crossing the Sea to See You, Yang Yi's forehead appeared a few black lines. Ahem. Yang Yi changed the topic. Ding Xiang, there are not many customers today. You don't have to stay here. Go back and rest. When it was not raining, there were a few students who came to drink coffee and study. The coffee shop's environment was good, and it was warmer than the library. But now that it was raining, where would there be customers? No, it's the weekend. Anyway, there is no class. I can read in the coffee shop and help Brother Yang entertain some sudden customers. Ding Xiang smiled. Speak of the devil. On a rainy day, there really was a customer who came in the rain. Ding Xiang pouted her lips, and Yang Yi saw a slightly bent figure outside the door, gradually becoming clear in the rain. Putting away the umbrella, The person pushed open the glass door and walked in. Although the door was opened and closed quickly, the moment when the cold wind blew in, she who was sitting next to her, could not help but shiver. "Hello. Welcome." Ding Xiang dutifully greeted the customer. The person who came was a middle-aged man in a neat woolen suit. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s. After taking off his jazz hat, half of his white hair was revealed, but the wrinkles on his face were not obvious, and his rosy face looked very healthy. "Hello." He nodded gently to Ding Xiang, and then began to ask about the menu and coffee. She was not very interested in adult matters. After curiously looking at the person who came in, she turned her head back and continued to look out the window with interest. However, not sure if it was because of the wind when the door opened, the little girl sneezed softly. Achoo. The sound was not loud. Yang Yi was looking at the person who came in, and his ears were listening to the conversation between Ding Xiang and the other party, so he did not pay attention. She also rubbed her little nose, not caring at all. "Then I'll order this Santos. Please heat it up a little. The weather is a little too cold," the person said softly to Ding Xiang. His accent was obviously not local, but there were many foreigners in the university town, so Yang Yi did not ask for more details. Ding Xiang quickly nodded. She took out the coffee beans from the coffee can, shook the hand mill, and began to grind the coffee beans. While waiting, the person glanced at Yang Yi, perhaps thinking that Yang Yi was a customer like himself, and nodded at Yang Yi in a friendly manner. However, when he curiously looked at the decorations in the shop, he was not surprised to see the piano placed next to it. His eyes lit up. This is Theodore?" The person seemed to be in disbelief that an expensive Theodore grand piano would be placed in an inconspicuous coffee shop. He could not help but walk up and take a closer look. He even took off his gloves and reached out to touch the logo on the piano, as if to identify the authenticity of the piano. When he recognized that it was the real Theodore, he looked around the coffee shop as if to evaluate whether the environment was a little bad. Yang Yi did not care. He glanced at the other party and then looked away. He could touch it as he pleased. After all, such a heavy piano could not be taken away under his nose. Of course, the other party did not look like a thief. Chapter 236. Jian Yifan was a guest professor that had been specially hired by the Jiangqing Media University's piano department for the past 2 years. However, Jian Yifan was actually a famous pianist. Most of the time, he performed overseas. Sometimes he would come back to China to rest for a month or two. Then he would take some time out to teach a few lessons to the students in Jiangchuan. Time was precious. Even on weekends, Jiangchuan still arranged 2 lessons for him. Jian Yifan's lessons were mainly guidance. He would let the students play, and then point out the flaws and give suggestions for improvement. Of course, he would also share some interesting things, thoughts, and experiences with the students from overseas performances. In general, his lessons were very popular with the students. Jian Yifan also liked the feeling of interacting with young piano students. After the lesson, Jian Yifan was preparing to go home. However, he was blocked by the sudden heavy rain. He could only stay in the hostel provided by the school. The school also helped to change his flight. However, Jian Yifan did not like the tight and narrow space of the hostel. After asking around with the students, he went to the cafe at the back door to pass the time. However, he did not expect to see a Theodore grand piano in this inconspicuous cafe. Of course, it didn't mean that Theodore grand pianos were rare. In the piano classroom of Jiangchuan Music Academy, there were 2 grand pianos of a higher grade, and in the art hall of the music hall, there was a performance-level Theodore grand piano. However, the problem was that a small cafe like this actually had a grand piano. Moreover, it was a grand piano that was usually used in professional settings. When Jian Yifan saw it, his heart was in a mess. Therefore, he could not help but take a closer look to make sure that he did not see the wrong brand. He also observed the surroundings. People who liked the piano would not want a pearl to be covered in dust. Fortunately, after looking around the cafe, Jian Yifan barely suppressed the anger of wanting to scold the owner of the cafe. The sound quality of the stereo was not bad. In addition, there were record shelves everywhere. It seemed that the owner of the cafe was a person who liked music. He did not buy a piano for the sake of being cultured. At this time, Ding Xiang made the coffee. She looked up and hurriedly said, "Sir, I'm sorry. Please don't touch the piano in the shop." Yang Yi didn't have this rule, but once, Ding Xiang's roommates came over to watch Ding Xiang and look at her working environment. The richest roommate in the family said that the piano was expensive, which made Ding Xiang remember it. Now that she saw the other party lift the piano cover, Ding Xiang panicked. She was afraid that the other party would break Yang Yi's piano. Jian Yifan's hands were really itchy. He opened the piano cover and wanted to press it. He made an excuse for himself that he wanted to test the sound to see if this Theodore grand piano was just a shell, although he did not suspect anything. Now that Ding Xiang had pointed it out, Jian Yifan, who was in his 50s, panicked. He felt as if he had done something immoral. Embarrassed, he hurriedly explained, "Sorry, I just wanted to see your piano." "You can look, but don't touch." Ding Xiang was concerned about the guest's feelings and said worriedly, "What if you break it?" "Of course not. Why would it break?" Jian Yifan was amused by Ding Xiang's words. He didn't feel so embarrassed. He introduced himself. "I'm a piano teacher at the Jiangqing Media University's School of Music. I teach piano. It's not my first time seeing a piano. Why would it break?" When Ding Xiang heard that the other party was a teacher, she felt embarrassed. She hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, teacher. I didn't know. Please forgive me." "No, you're just doing your job." Jian Yifan chuckled. "Actually, I was just itching to try it out when I saw such a good piano here. But since it affects your work, then forget it. Thank you for your understanding." Ding Xiang said gratefully. "Well, since you're a piano teacher, it's okay to use the piano." Yang Yi finally opened his mouth. He wanted to keep a low profile, but when he saw Ding Xiang, this silly girl, he had no choice but to speak up. "You are?" Jian Yifan looked at Yang Yi, who was sitting there as tall and strong as ever. At first, he thought that Yang Yi was a customer of the coffee shop or a guy who was here to pursue a girl, Ding Xiang. "This is my boss," Ding Xiang hurriedly introduced. Yang Yi smiled and said, "I bought the piano. It's not just for decoration. I usually play with it myself. If any customer wants to show off his skills, he's welcome to try. Of course, he has to be confident in his skills. After all, I don't want our customers to hear a bunch of noise." These words were said to Jian Yifan, but Yang Yi also wanted to say it to Ding Xiang. This girl seemed to have misunderstood something. No wonder she was so hesitant when she looked at the piano. There was no need for that. "Haha, if that's the case, you can rest assured. I, Jian Yifan, am a pianist who has performed in Vienna before." As Jian Yifan spoke, he looked at Yang Yi with interest. He thought to himself, you can't judge a book by its cover. This tall and strong man is also a music lover. Looking at the decorations in the coffee shop, as well as Theodore's display and maintenance, Jian Yifan's impression of Yang Yi improved a lot. "Jian Yifan." Yang Yi softly said his name. He didn't have much of an impression. He smiled and waved his right hand. "Teacher Jian, please." "Then I'll embarrass myself." Jian Yifan didn't stand on ceremony. He sat down by the piano. Although it wasn't the best, it was still a good piano. Jian Yifan gently stroked the black and white keys. His fondness for the piano was obvious on his face. The commotion finally attracted Shishi's attention. The little girl jumped down from the sofa and ran to her father's side. She was like a little raindrop outside the window. "Daddy, who is this old man?" Shishi snuggled in her father's arms and asked with a nasal voice. Luckily, Jian Yifan didn't hear it. Otherwise, he would have dyed his hair completely black. "A teacher. He teaches piano," Yang Yi whispered to his daughter. On the other side, Jian Yifan finally stopped stroking the piano sincerely. Then he tried to play a short melody. He closed his eyes and listened. He seemed to be judging the pitch of the piano. This wasn't a problem. Yang Yi could adjust it himself. He usually took good care of it. After all, Murphy wanted to play the piano every time she came. Jian Yifan showed a satisfied expression. Then he started to play. He raised his hand, bent his fingers and pressed down. From the moment Jian Yifan played the first note, Yang Yi could tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. Even though he boasted that he was good at playing the piano, he couldn't help but show shock in his eyes. Yang Yi's mastery was only at the average level of professional piano students. Jian Yifan, on the other hand, had crossed a huge gap. He was at the level of professional pianists like Lang Lang and Li Yundi in his previous life. Skills and whatnot were tossed aside for now. The melodious sound of the piano rang out like the tinkling of spring water. Yang Yi stopped whispering to his daughter and listened attentively. Perhaps Jian Yifan was also excited by the prospect. In this small coffee shop, he actually started a small performance on a whim. He slowly played a movement, this world's famous desert camels. Note 1. Chapter 237. Desert Camels. Yang Yi had heard this piano piece before. In fact, most of the music on the shelves in his coffee shop were not pop albums, but pure music CDs for piano or violin. Usually, he would play these pure music CDs in his shop. Of course, Yang Yi was still appreciating the famous music in this world. He had not played it yet, but he recognized it when he heard the prelude. This was the first time that Yang Yi had heard a master's live performance. Jian Yifan's performance seemed to be as good as the recordings that Yang Yi had heard. Closing his eyes and listening to it, the beautiful notes seemed to be alive and beating. At the beginning, the rhythm was a little slow, as if he had walked into a desert. Worries were brewing, and the slightly nervous secondary melody was urging him like a clock, pushing the main melody in a faster direction. Slowly, as if the camels were growing stronger, the notes that were played by the heavy keys seemed to indicate that they were walking steadily into the distance. Of course, these feelings were just imagination, but the beautiful piano playing stimulated these imaginations. Papa, Papa. The little girl felt that the music was very nice and wanted to whisper to her father. She pulled on her father's clothes and whispered, "Shoo." Yang Yi lowered his head and raised his fingers. Then he rubbed the little girl's head, indicating that she should listen carefully. The movement was very long. There were strong winds and sandstorms in the middle, but the camels fearlessly challenged all the difficulties. The melody became more and more passionate. Jian Yifan's fingers moved faster and faster, and the rhythm became more and more obvious. In the end, it seemed to be a eulogy. After a while, it returned to a brisk ending and gradually calmed down. Yang Yi slowly opened his eyes and saw Jian Yifan's hand gestures. He was like a real performer. He was indeed professional. Ding Xiang was the first to applaud. She was not very good at appreciating music, but even people who did not know much about music could tell the difference. Ding Xiang also felt that this old man played very smoothly. He should be very good. She also applauded. The little girl really felt that the music was very nice. It was even better than her mother's piano. Thank you. I couldn't control myself when I saw the good zither, so I played it for a while. You don't mind, do you? Jian Yifan cupped his hands and smiled. He was very polite. Perhaps it was because he had been abroad for many years, but he behaved very gentlemanly. You flatter me. Teacher Jian is definitely a virtuoso. Yang Yi said with a smile. It's our honor to be able to play a song in this restaurant. Actually, the entire movement had taken up quite a bit of time. The piping hot coffee that Ding Xiang had brewed was no longer emitting white steam. Yang Yi noticed this detail. He pushed the cup on the bar and said, "Ding Xiang, make another one. This one is cold." Jian Yifan came over and sat down at the bar. He wanted to tease the cute little girl Shi, but he quickly waved his hand and said, No, it's not her fault. It's all my fault. Don't blame her." Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. He then smiled and said, "Teacher Jian, you misunderstood. I didn't blame Ding Xiang. I just asked her to make a hot cup for you. Then I'll pay for 2 cups of coffee." Jian Yifan felt bad and wanted to reach into his pocket. "How can you do that? We're so lucky to be able to listen to your desert camel herd. This cup of coffee is on me." Yang Yi quickly stopped him. After some persuasion, the honest teacher Jian finally gave up on the idea. However, teacher Jian still kept the money, saying that it was a tip for Ding Xiang. Yang Yi didn't stop him. He even smiled and let Ding Xiang, who was blushing, accept the money. After a while, Jian Yifan got to know Yang Yi's name. He also knew that Yang Yi liked classical music. Would I be lucky enough to hear Mr. Yang play? Jian Yifan humorously said. Thank you for this cup of delicious freshly ground coffee. I'm not good at anything, but I have some experience in teaching students. Perhaps this is the only way to repay your generosity, Mr. Yang. Jian Yifan really wanted to give Yang Yi some pointers. Although he didn't know how good Yang Yi was, he had no problem giving pointers to most piano players. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. Then he was delighted. He stood up and said, Teacher Jian, it's great that you're willing to give me pointers. In his previous life, he wasn't someone who liked to work behind closed doors. He was obsessed with swords and knives. He even traveled all over China to ask for advice from famous masters of different sections. After coming to this world, Yang Yi's biggest hobby was music. Although he didn't want to become a pianist, if he could get the guidance of a master pianist and improve his personal ability, how could Yang Yi not be happy? Sitting in front of the piano, Yang Yi was in a daze for a moment. He hesitated whether he should play a classic from his previous life. However, Yang Yi gave up on the idea. He was accepting Jian Yifan's guidance, not showing off his creative ability. Yang Yi didn't hide anymore. He tried his best and played a piece that he had practiced before. Ding Xiang watched from the side and couldn't help but cover her mouth in shock. Brother Yang could do this? Yang Yi had never played the piano in front of her before. He was too low-key. Ding Xiang foolishly thought that Yang Yi bought the piano for Murphy. She didn't expect Yang Yi to know how to play the piano. At that moment, Ding Xiang felt a tug on her clothes. She looked down and saw Xixi at the bar. The little girl proudly muttered to her sister Ding Xiang, My papa is amazing. Achoo. After saying that, Xixi sneezed again. Xixi, why did you sneeze? Ding Xiang noticed and quickly wiped the little girl's nose with a tissue. Jian Yifan, who was sitting in front of the bar, also heard the cute little girl's words. He smiled. Jian Yifan didn't expect Yang Yi to be so good. He was almost on par with the students he taught. What Jian Yifan found interesting was that the smooth piano sound and clean fingering seemed to contradict Yang Yi's tall and sturdy body. However, they somehow merged together. Jian Yifan couldn't help but sigh at how amazing the creator was. Of course, Jian Yifan could still find many problems with the performance. After Yang Yi finished playing the song, Ding Xiang and Xixi stopped clapping excitedly. Jian Yifan then said to Yang Yi, Boss Yang, I might be a bit blunt. I'm used to being a teacher. I want to discuss the performance with you. Perhaps my words might not be pleasant to hear. You don't mind, right? What he wanted was to point out the flaws and help him improve. Yang Yi wasn't a young man in his early 20s. He didn't have that much vanity. Therefore Yang Yi smiled calmly and said, Teacher Jian, don't worry. Just tell me what you want to say. I'm terrible at it. I know that. No, you're actually not bad. It's just that there are some parts. Jian Yifan excitedly started to guide Yang Yi. The rain trapped Jian Yifan and Yang Yi in a coffee shop. Although they had only met once and were only guiding him on a whim, Jian Yifan and Yang Yi quietly built a friendship because of their mutual love for the piano. Chapter 238. Yang Yi, are you stupid? Early on Monday morning, Yang Yi lowered his head and sat on the sofa obediently. He was scolded by Murphy, who had rushed back anxiously. He didn't want to defend himself and blamed himself in his heart. Xixi still caught a cold. Yesterday at the coffee shop, the little girl sneezed a few times. Yang Yi didn't realize it until later. Although he had read some books before, made some preparations, and made a dinner for Xixi to strengthen her immune system in time, such as chicken soup, fried vegetables with carrots, and so on, it was still too late. In the evening, Xixi's cold gradually became serious. First, she kept sneezing, and then she had a runny nose. Yang Yi wiped the little girl's nose with a lot of tissues, and her little nose was red. Then, before going to bed at night, the little girl began to cough. In the middle of the night, the little girl coughed badly and said to her father in a daze, Papa, I feel so uncomfortable. Yang Yi hurriedly sent Xixi to the hospital in the university town in the middle of the night for treatment. Fortunately, the doctor said that there was no complicated pneumonia after examination. It was a blessing in disguise, but it still took them a whole night to come back. Early the next morning, Yang Yi informed Murphy, so there was the beginning of the scene. Murphy didn't have time to talk about Yang Yi. She went to the bedroom to see her daughter first. The little girl was still sleeping soundly after a night of tossing and turning, but she didn't sleep well. She coughed for a while and muttered in her dream, "Papa, I don't want an injection." When she visited Lan Xian, what Lan Xian said seemed to have left a deep impression on the little girl. "No injection, we don't need an injection." Murphy comforted her in a low voice, distressed. Looking at Shishi's messy hair and listening to Shishi's uneven breathing while sleeping, she felt that her daughter had become much more haggard. Murphy could only be angry at Yang Yi. She pulled Yang Yi into the living room and lectured him again. "I told you that she has been catching a lot of colds recently. You should pay attention to whether she has a cold or a fever. How could you forget? Then, when the other children caught a cold or had a fever, you still foolishly brought Shishi to them. Please, how old is Shishi? She doesn't have as good a resistance as you do. How can you let her be and let her visit a sick friend like an adult?" Yang Yi lowered his head submissively. He knew that he was in the wrong and did not dare to refute. Of course, Murphy was only angry for a moment. After her anger subsided, she did not blame Yang Yi anymore. She called Mo Xiaowan to ask Jining Ming for leave for her. Although she was embarrassed to ask for leave again after just 2 days of recording, this time she was sick. No matter what, Murphy had to ask for leave to accompany her daughter. Seeing Murphy calling, Yang Yi remembered to call Springfield Kindergarten and ask Teacher Mu to ask for leave for Shishi. After putting down the phone, Yang Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry and said to Murphy, "Lan Xian and Nan Jiaoyu also asked for leave. They also caught a cold. It seems that they have been infected. That's why I told you. You see, you made other people's children catch a cold. Do you still dare to be careless in the future?" Murphy pinched Yang Yi reproachfully. However, Murphy did not continue to be long-winded. She did not have the habit of nagging. She just snuggled up to Yang Yi and sat down, looking at the cold medicine prescribed by the doctor yesterday. "When Shishi caught a cold, what medicine did you give her?" Yang Yi asked. If she could not take medicine, she would not take medicine. Murphy frowned and picked out the medicine aside. She said, "Especially this kind of Western medicine. When I was in the United States, the hospital did not encourage children under the age of 6 to take cold medicine. The hospitals in China are really too much. They prescribe so much anti-inflammatory medicine and Chinese medicine together. I also did not dare to let Shishi take medicine with antibiotics. Last night, I just gave her a pack of powder, but the effect did not seem to be obvious." Yang Yi remembered that when he read some information before, it mentioned that these medicines would destroy the immunity of the child's body if used too much. Yes, she should also take less cold medicine, or not take it at all. Cold is actually a small illness that can be cured by itself, but because Shishi is still very young, she often catches a cold for a week. Don't be too nervous. As long as it is not too serious, we can let her recover slowly. There is no need to take medicine," Murphy said. "But Shishi coughs very badly, and her nose is running all the time," Yang Yi said with concern. "If she coughs, there is no need to take medicine. There are other ways." Cece woke up before noon. Although she was a little weak after catching a cold, the little girl was full of energy after a good night's sleep. She couldn't stay on the bed. Only after her mother put on her clothes and wrapped her tightly did she jump down from the bed. Shishi came to the kitchen, looked at her father and asked, "Papa, what are you doing?" As soon as she finished speaking, Shishi coughed heavily twice, and 2 lines of clear nose water flowed down. The little girl felt uncomfortable and sniffed her nose. "Don't sniff, blow it out gently." Murphy followed. She took a tissue and squatted down to wipe the little girl's nose. Yang Yi wiped his hands, smiled at his daughter who was blowing her nose, and said, "Dad will make soup for you. After drinking it, you won't cough anymore." Since she did not want to take medicine, Yang Yi decided to use food therapy for his daughter. This pot of radish and pig's lung soup had the effect of relieving coughing and asthma. He had just driven to buy the pig's lung. It was very fresh, and he boiled it for an hour with the chopped radish and almonds. Then Papa, Did you tell the teacher that she can't go to kindergarten today? The little girl asked nervously. Of course. Your father told Teacher Moo. Teacher Moo wants you to get better quickly. When you get better, you can go to kindergarten to play with your friends. Murphy lifted the little girl's hair and said softly, Okay then. But Dad, you have to make delicious food. Tonight Chi-Chi, Xian Air and Xiaoyu will come to see me. It turned out that the little girl was thinking about this. No wonder she was so energetic and expectant even when she had a cold. She might have regarded this as a reincarnation. This time, it was her turn to be sick, and then there would be many friends coming to visit her. She was very happy when she thought about it. Murphy pinched the little girl's face and said angrily, You're still talking about it. It's all your papa's fault. He took you to visit your friends, and you accidentally caught a cold. Your papa called Teacher Moo this morning, and Teacher Moo said that Xian Air and Xiaoyu were also sick. She was a little confused. She looked at her father, trying to get some different news from him. Yes, it's Dad's fault. I shouldn't have taken you to see Chi-Chi. Yang Yi hugged the little girl in his arms. Although she could only hold her father's knees, he comforted her softly. But it doesn't matter. Get better soon, so that you can go back to kindergarten to see them earlier. However, after learning that her friends could not come to visit her, she was a little depressed. Although her mother took her to the living room to watch TV, she was not as energetic as before. Not only that, the little girl had a bad appetite after being sick at lunch. Yang Yi had considered this problem in advance, and made the little girl's favorite chicken wings. Of course, he did not fry them. He simply boiled them in soup and dipped them in soy sauce. The meat of the chicken wings was different from other cooking methods, and was very delicious. However, she could not eat it. The little girl looked sick and stretched out her small hand to block the small spoon that her mother fed her. Just as she was about to speak, she lowered her head and sneezed again. The little rice in her mouth that she had not swallowed was sprayed on her clothes. Now that she needed bibs, Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other and smiled helplessly. They used them to make dolls for Shishi. Shishi held her father's hand and wiped her mouth with the handkerchief, but she did not wipe her nose. She did not realize that 2 streams of water were hanging from her little nose. She wiped too much today, and the skin under the little girl's nose was red. She looked embarrassed and pitiful. I can't eat. The little girl pouted and said to her father, Papa, I feel so bad. If you can't eat, then drink some soup and rest for a while. You can eat when you feel better, Yang Yi said with concern. Chapter 239. Actually, being sick was not that bad. Apart from not being able to go to kindergarten to play with her friends, and not being able to touch her beloved sweetheart before she recovered from her cold, after the first day of discomfort, she felt that being sick was actually a very enjoyable thing. Almost all day long, her parents were around her. In the morning, she could sleep very late. She could sleep until she was not angry at all before waking up. Then, her mother would dress her and hold her hand before coming out. During the day, she could watch cartoons at home. She could also go downstairs to play with Sister Ding Xiang and her mother. Then, the little girl would tell stories to Sister Ding Xiang in her cute muffled voice. Anyway, after being sick, her parents had less restrictions on her. Sister Ding Xiang would also try her best to satisfy Shishi's requests and play with her. Because she was sick, it was not good for her to stay at home all the time. Therefore, her parents would also take her to Tingshan Park, where there were not many people. Although her mother still asked her father to put on makeup, she still felt very happy because her mother rarely took her to public places to play. The most fun was at night. It was rare that both her parents were at home. She enjoyed the treatment of a little princess. Her mother would sing for her, and her father would dance and perform some magic tricks that he had just learned. Then, before going to bed, she could not only hear her father tell her the story of Journey to the West, but also hear her mother, who was not very good at telling stories, read her a storybook. She did not want to tell her mother that she had already heard the story that her mother read. Eating, especially, made Shishi feel that she was so lucky. This was because the little girl had called Xian, and her other friends. Although they didn't talk much, Cece still knew that after they fell ill, They didn't eat well every day. Those vegetables and boiled pork made Exiner want to vomit. Shishi, on the other hand, was different. She had a father who was a chef. He knew that she had a bad appetite and couldn't eat too greasy and hot food. Therefore, he cooked up a variety of non-greasy yet super delicious dishes for her every day. For breakfast, there was lily and wolfberry porridge, millet and red date porridge, small wontons, and so on. For dinner, there was pea and minced pork with jade tofu, cucumber mixed with tofu skin, steamed pork ribs and black bean sauce, pork belly stewed with barley and tofu, stir-fried shredded pork with mushrooms, and so on. Naturally, there was a lot of soup for Shishi to replenish her water supply, such as winter melon and pork rib soup, dragon bone papaya soup, kelp and pork rib soup, which nourished the lungs, stopped coughing, and even strengthened the immune system. Even so, Shishi didn't eat much during mealtimes, so Yang-yi would usually prepare some small snacks for Murphy to feed Shishi in the morning or afternoon. Shishi ate most of the stewed pear with rock sugar, fritillary, and snow pear. She also ate sweet water stewed with sand ginseng, jade bamboo, tremella, and barley. She also ate purple-red soy milk made with longan, peanuts, and soybeans. Not only were there sweet ones, but there were also salty ones. The strangest one was steamed salt oranges. It was Shishi's first time eating salty oranges. Although the little girl didn't like it very much, her coughing was indeed much better after eating it. Shishi's physical fitness was indeed better than other children's. She didn't know if it was because of her good genes, or because she often trained with her father. Although she didn't take cold medicine or go to the hospital for an injection, compared to Yang Luoqi who took cold medicine and Lan Xian who went to the hospital for an injection, Cece's cold recovered very quickly. On Wednesday, Cece no longer sneezed or had a runny nose, but her cough recovered slightly slower. The influenza was raging, and the children in Springfield Kindergarten caught the flu one after another. After hearing from Mr. Mu that the attendance rate was less than half, Murphy was even more worried and asked Shishi to continue to rest at home. At noon, the little girl couldn't sleep, so she hugged her mom's arm and said coquettishly, "Mom, what's wrong? I don't want to get sick so quickly," the little girl said with a smile. "Why?" Murphy asked in surprise. Yang-yi was very worried about Shishi's illness. He also tried his best to make his daughter get better as soon as possible. However, the most anxious and distressed person was Murphy, especially these days. She left her work and accompanied Shishi 24/7. She was tormented. Murphy also sneezed a few times while taking care of the sick Shishi. If Yang-yi didn't make some ginger water for her to drink and force her to rest more, Murphy was afraid that she would catch a cold herself. This wasn't the first time. In the past, Murphy and Shishi caught a cold together, and then the mother and daughter hurt each other. Murphy wanted Shishi to recover quickly, but the little girl said that she didn't want to get better so quickly. "Hee, because I like to be sick, so Mom can accompany me," Shishi said innocently. "Silly, even if you don't get sick, Mom will accompany you." Murphy felt a little inexplicably sad. But Mom will go to work. If Mom doesn't go home, she won't be able to accompany Shishi. Shishi pouted. Murphy fell into silence. She didn't know why, but she thought of the picture Yang-yi painted for her at that time. During this period, the changes in Nyo Miling and the company made Murphy feel the joy of returning to the good times, but Murphy wasn't as touched as she thought. Perhaps it was because of what Nyo Miling had done before, or because the studio that Yang-yi described to her was too beautiful. Murphy's desire to stay was not as strong as before. But today, Shishi's unintentional words made Murphy waver a little again. The little girl didn't notice her mother's silence, and she continued to say, "Hee, but I also want to get better soon. I miss Xian Air, Chi-Chi, Chen Shuryan Nanjiaoyu." Silly girl. Murphy gently hugged her daughter and said softly, "Mom, can I not get sick, and then I can go to the kindergarten to play with Xian Air, Chi-Chi, and the others, and then Mom can accompany me at home? Can I always be like this?" Shishi rubbed her little head in her mother's arms and smiled sweetly. "Of course, but Shishi, you have to get better quickly, and then Mom will take more time to accompany you in the future," Murphy said softly. "Then I will get better tomorrow." The little girl giggled happily. "Well, Mom hopes so. Then can Mom and Papa sleep with Shishi?" The little girl felt that she seemed to be very lucky today and wanted to continue to make requests. Why? For a moment, Murphy thought that her daughter had seen through her relationship with Yang Yi, and she was a little flustered. Well, no reason, she likes having Papa and Mom by her side. But our bed can't hold so many people. Murphy guiltily found another excuse. Ask Papa to buy a big bed. Xionaire's bed is very big. Okay. The little girl acted coquettishly. Okay, go to sleep. Murphy had a headache from her daughter's pestering. Good afternoon, Mom. She finally got the answer she wanted, and she closed her eyes contentedly. Chapter 240. In Beijing, in a set of the film and television base, there were many corpses lying in disorder. Black smoke slowly floated in the air, and the surroundings were so quiet that one could hear the whistling of the north wind. It was extremely strange. Cut. Finally, someone shouted from the side. Only then did the corpses come back to life. Among the group of old foxes who slowly climbed to their feet, one of the shorter corpses moved much more nimbly. He pulled the black cloth off his body, packed it up, and brought it to the stage supervisor. Brother, do I still have a chance? He was very sweet with a shy smile on his face. No, next. The stage supervisor was very impatient. He took out 100 yuan from the money in his hand and handed it to the short guy. Then he turned around and shouted, "Come and get your money if you're working alone. Find your boss if you're caught. Next time, the whole Beijing will ban you." The short guy carefully hid the money close to his body. He didn't care about the other's attitude at all. He still nodded and smiled. As he waved to leave, he said, "Then I'm leaving. Brother, if you have any roles, just contact me." As soon as he walked out of the set, the short guy was hugged by someone. Almost subconsciously, the short guy shrunk his head and reached out to protect the money bag in his arms. He thought that someone was going to rob him. "Gengsha, I've been waiting for you for so long. You've been pretending to be a corpse for so long." The person spat out saliva, but the familiar voice still made Gengsha relax. "Brother Dabin, it's you." Gengsha smiled happily. "You, Brother Ruan, and Director Chen's crew, haven't you finished filming? Why aren't you on vacation? Why are you still filming in the film base?" "I'm not on vacation. I don't work with the crew every day. Do you think I have nothing to do after filming is finished?" Brother Dabin snorted. "Didn't I come to the film base to find you?" The few brothers from the same village were not as persistent as him. In the past month, they couldn't stand this hopeless career. Some went home, and some went to work in the cities in the south. Gengsha was the only one left in Beijing, so he was very happy to see acquaintances. Gengsha patted the 100 yuan in his pocket and said happily, "Looking for me? Brother Dabin, let's go. I'll treat you to skewers. Let's talk while we eat." It was the same old place, Xiren village. Brother Dabin was drinking beer and eating skewers until his face was covered in oil. Gengxia was also eating at the side, but he was more busy pouring beer for Brother Dabin. Ugh. Big Brother Dabin was a little bloated after drinking too much beer. He burped and said to Gengxia comfortably, "Gengxia, our director Chen is going to start a new drama next month." "Really? That's great. If Big Brother Bin has any roles, you must tell me. I can act," Gengsha said excitedly. "You can even act as the main character?" Brother Dabin glanced at this silly guy. "Ah, protagonist? I can't play the lead role, I can't play it." Gengsha hurriedly waved his hand, as if he had really been invited to play the lead role. He was so scared that his face turned pale. "Humph, I knew you were a coward." Big Brother Dabin raised his chin, but then smiled weirdly and said, "But this time I came to find you to let you compete for the lead role. And it's the male lead." Huh. Gengsha was dumbfounded. "Don't be so smug, it's none of your business. Do you really think you're going to be the lead? Even I would be better than you." Big Brother Dabin smiled proudly. "Big Brother Dabin, what are you talking about?" Gengsha was confused. Big Brother Dabin then continued leisurely, "It's like this. Our director Chen's drama lacks suitable actors for the lead role, so there's an open audition. From the videos of actors who want to try, we'll pick a suitable person. Isn't Director Wan in charge of this? But none of the people picked from the videos caught Director Chen's eye. He couldn't bear to look at them, so Director Wan was scolded by Director Chen. The actors that Assistant Wan picked were too bad. They didn't fit the image of Su Sanduo in Chen Fengchen's mind. Chen Fengchen scolded him terribly, saying that if there wasn't a decent one, Assistant Wan should get lost and get someone who could do something. Therefore, Assistant Wan could only look for Su Sanduo everywhere. It didn't matter if he could become the main character, as long as his image and temperament were a little special. Even if he was just an extra, he had to quickly get him to put out the fire. Came from the countryside, honest, had been in the army, thin and small. With all these qualities combined, he really couldn't find a few suitable ones. As Assistant Ruan's lackey, when Big Brother Dabin saw these qualities, the first person he thought of was Geng Sha. But there was a problem. Geng Sha had never been in the army. Yeah, I've never been in the army. Geng Sha was still nervous and scared. Director Wan said that putting out a fire is like saving a life. Don't worry so much. Let's do it first. Big Brother Dabin patted Geng Sha's shoulder and comforted him. Geng Sha, just help me out. If there's a good role later, I'll definitely call you. Big Brother Dabin didn't tell Geng Sha that the drama would be filmed in Jiangnan. Even if there were extra roles, Geng Sha probably wouldn't be able to follow. But wasn't Geng Sha easy to fool? Geng Sha was full of gratitude. He patted his chest and said, "Okay, Big Brother Dabin, if there's anything you need me for, just let me know. Now you have to shoot a video of the audition. Assistant Wan has a camera." At the entrance of Springfield Kindergarten, Shishi, who had been absent for a whole week, finally came back. Her cold had long been cured, but her cough had dragged on for a few days. Coupled with the weekend, the little girl was only sent over by her father on Monday. "Bye, Papa." Although Shishi obediently waved at her father, the joy in her eyes couldn't be hidden. She couldn't wait to go in and find her little friend whom she hadn't seen for many days. But Yang Yi was still worried. He squatted down and held his daughter's hand. He nagged, "The weather is hot now. You have to drink more water, okay? If you finish the water in the bottle, you have to tell Teacher Mu and ask her to fill it up for you. Okay." The little girl put her hand on her father's shoulder and anxiously jumped up and down. "Papa, it's time to say goodbye." "Okay, goodbye. Go and play." Yang Yi helplessly let go of his hand. He watched as the little girl turned her head. She waved at the teacher at the door and ran in with a jump. Her little figure quickly disappeared at the end. This girl. Yang Yi shook his head helplessly. He didn't know why, but he missed Shishi before she went to kindergarten. At that time, the little girl was very clingy. Now that she had grown up and had her own little friends, she was not so clingy to her father. "Good morning, Teacher Kai." In the middle class of kindergarten, Shishi squeezed into the classroom from Teacher Kai's side and couldn't wait to rush to her little friends. Shishi. Chen Shuryan was the first to see Shishi. She shouted happily. Lan Exayan and Yang Luoqi were both there. They ran over happily and jumped up and down with Shishi in their arms. "Shishi, you're here too. Now only Nan Jiayu hasn't come," Lan Exayan said. "Nan Jiayu is still sick," Shishi said. "His papa told my papa that Nan Jiayu hasn't recovered from his cold." "No, Chi-Chi and I have already recovered from our cold," Lan Exayan said. Yang Luoqi, who was next to her, also nodded quickly. She recovered early and came to kindergarten last week. These little girls didn't care at all about who infected who with the cold. Anyway, they were very happy to see their good friends. "Shishi, you didn't come last week. I was so hungry that I lost weight. I'm so happy to see you." Chen Shuryan patted Shishi's shoulder to attract the little girl's attention and shouted loudly. "Humph, Chen Shuryan, I'm not happy to see you." Shishi pouted and said. "We agreed to go see Chi-Chi, but you didn't come." "Yes, Chen Shuryan, you don't keep your word." Lan Exayan and Chen Shuryan have always been at odds, so she took the opportunity to hit her when she was down. "It doesn't matter," Yang Luoqi said weakly. Seeing her good friends quarreling, she felt very sorry. That's not because I don't want to go." Chen Shuryan pouted, lowered her head and argued with grievance. "It's because my mom didn't let me go. Then I cried for a long time." Shishi saw Chen Shuryan's sad appearance, her heart softened. The little girl took Chun Shiryun's hand and said, "Well, it's your mom's fault. I don't blame you." Chapter 241. When Shishi returned to kindergarten, Murphy could finally go back to work. The company was actually urging her to finish recording, coming across the ocean to see you, as soon as possible. Taking advantage of the popularity of the show after it was broadcast, Tianmei wanted to arrange for Murphy to release the single first and post it on the music website for fans to download and gain a wave of popularity. When she arrived at the company, Murphy saw Mo Xiaowan. This girl had been out for a week and came back humming a song. She seemed to be in a good mood. She wondered if she had found a boyfriend. But Murphy had no intention of gossiping. She had something to discuss with Mo Xiaowan. "Xiaowan, I remember that you rented an apartment before, right?" Murphy said to Mo Xiaowan before she started work. Mo Xiaowan hesitated for a moment and nodded. "Oh, I see. I'm moving to Yang Yi's place." Before Murphy could finish her words, Mo Xiaowan looked up at her with a smile and a funny expression. "What did you do?" Murphy was creeped out by her look. Hee, sis, I told you to move there a long time ago. You're still pushing it around." Mo Xiaowan giggled as she pulled Murphy and said, "I saw through your relationship with brother-in-law a long time ago. It was only a matter of time before you moved there." "What are you talking about? I'm not moving there for Yang Yi. It's just that Shishi is always pestering me and I can't bear to part with her." Murphy rebuked Mo Xiaowan and pushed her. "Oh, anyway, you're just pushing the boat along with the current. Don't worry, don't worry." Mo Xiaowan looked like she understood. Murphy was a little scared by this guy. She was afraid that more embarrassing things would be dug up, so she quickly said, "I'm not talking nonsense with you. I want to tell you that I'm going to live with Yang Yi now, and then the house in Binhai is empty. Aunt Zhu is also there, so you can live there. You don't have to rent a house." However, Mo Xiaowan looked at Murphy awkwardly, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Sis, I can't. I just rented a house in Tingshan district with Xiao Ai, and I already paid the rent and deposit." This was true. After all, Mo Xiaowan and Xiao Ai each rented a house in the coastal area, and it was very tiring to go to Tingshan every day to deal with the studio's matters. Therefore, she and Xiao Ai decided to share a room at the last minute. They found a house together last week and had just moved in. "Xiao Ai, why is it Tingshan district?" Murphy was a little puzzled and asked. "Tingshan district, what a coincidence. She and Yang Yi were also in Tingshan district. Because Xiao Ai works at a company in Tingshan district, and I'm there to accompany her." Mo Xiaowan was a little guilty. Mo Xiaowan was now particularly afraid that Murphy would ask further. If she continued to ask, she was afraid that the preparation of the studio would be leaked. Murphy didn't intend to ask further. She smiled and said, "No wonder you often ask for leave recently. Are you looking for a house?" Yes. But sister, don't worry. Even if I live in Tingshan district, I won't delay your work. I will definitely do my job well." Mo Xiaowan quickly said, "By the way, sister, I can usually pick you up on the way to the company and back." Murphy shook her head and said with a smile, "No, Yang Yi said that he will pick me up every day, but in the future, I will have to work overtime less." Seeing that the topic had changed, Mo Xiaowan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She reached out and rubbed Murphy's shoulder and said, "Sister, this is the right way to think. We women can't always work so hard. When we are young, we can work hard, but slowly, our skin will become worse and worse." Okay, I know," Murphy said angrily. Jean Yingming arrived on time, and Murphy apologized to him again. Although she had been honest with him about the reason, Murphy felt that she had affected Jean Yingming's schedule by asking for leave again and again, so she felt very sorry. No, Murphy, you don't have to apologize to me. I am also a parent. My daughter was very tormented when she was young, so I can understand your difficulties." Jean Yingming waved his hand and smiled. "But I am more surprised that, Murphy, you actually have a child, and the media didn't have any news about it before. The main reason is that I don't want my child's life to be affected. With excessive media attention, I am worried that my daughter won't be able to grow up happily like an ordinary child," Murphy said softly. So please help me keep it a secret, Teacher Jean. Mo Shawan added with a smile on her face. Of course, this is not a problem. As a music producer, keeping one's mouth shut is a basic skill, Jean Ingming said half-jokingly. Murphy was not in the mood to chat with others, and Jean Ingming also understood this. So, without much nonsense, they entered Murphy's exclusive recording studio and nervously started the recording of Coming Across the Sea to See You. After resting for a week, although Murphy still kept practicing every day, it could be said that her voice was taken care of. When they came back to record that day, Murphy felt that she was in a very good state. In the morning, she recorded a few sound sources that both she and Jean Ingming felt were good. In the afternoon, I will try to lower the pitch of this section and see how it works. If I keep in good condition, I think I will be able to record this song in 2 days. At noon, Jean Ingming waved his fist and said happily to Mo Fei. Murphy nodded lightly, but she did not show the joy in her heart. While waiting for Mo Shawan to bring lunch back, Murphy still did not relax. She pulled on her headphones and listened to the audio she recorded in the morning. Jean Ingming said excitedly, "Murphy, let me tell you, I have a new discovery. Mr. Mu Ong should be in Tingshan District." Tingshan District? Murphy stopped, turned her head, and looked at Jean Ingming in confusion. Today, she seemed to have an affinity with this word. She lived in Tingshan District, was sent here by Yang Yi from Tingshan District, and then Mo Shawan moved to Tingshan District. Now Jean Ingming mentioned Tingshan District again. Why was it Tingshan District again? When Murphy heard Jean Ingming's words, she subconsciously focused on this Tingshan District. Then she noticed that Jean Ingming was talking about Mu Zong. Yes, I think the possibility of Mr. Mu Ong living in Tingshan District is very high. Jean Ingming was now a die-hard fan of Mu Ong, and he was in high spirits when talking about him. And Mr. Mu Ong is very likely to be in Jiang City Media University. Maybe he is also a teacher in Jiangchuan. Murphy had an indescribable feeling in her heart. Why do you say so? Because I found a new song by Mr. Mu Ong. It's really a new song, because it hasn't appeared in the market yet. Jean Ingming walked to his backpack and took out the CD box that he always carried with him. He carefully took out a CD and said excitedly, "A friend accidentally found a new song by Mr. Mu Ong in this commemorative CD of this year's Jiang City Media University Freshman's Party. He knew that I liked it, so he brought it to me." Mo Fei looked at him. For some reason, she frowned and didn't speak. This new song is called University Days. Although it was sung by a freshman, the song is very well written. It's a campus folk song that I like very much, Jean Ingming said excitedly, as if he was presenting a treasure. Murphy, do you want to listen to it? Let me tell you, after you watch this video, you will definitely know why. I guess Mu Ong might be living in Tingshan District, and he might be a teacher in Jiang City Media University. Murphy stared at the CD. She didn't know what she was thinking, or her mind was blank. After a while she said softly, "Let's take a look then." Chapter 242. Tingshan District, Jiangqing Media University. These two keywords had a huge impact on Murphy. She had a vague idea that she didn't dare to believe, but it was better not to let her imagination run wild. Murphy calmed down. Jean Ingming stuffed the CD into the computer in the recording studio and clicked on the video of the freshman's party, which was as good as the live broadcast on TV. Then he swiftly dragged the progress bar to the scene where Guizi went on stage. Obviously, he had watched it many times. Jean Ingming had dragged the progress bar countless times for Mu Ong's song, which was why he was so adept at it. The video started to play, but Murphy was stunned. She knew the boy on stage. Wasn't he Yang Yi's friend, Ding Xiang's junior, Guizi? Murphy recalled what Guizi said to Yang Yi when he came over. She didn't pay much attention to it at that time, but it seemed that they were talking about the freshman's party. Murphy, pay attention to what he's going to say next. Jean Ingming didn't notice the change in Murphy's expression and reminded her excitedly. Murphy came back to her senses and saw Guizi talking on the computer screen. "The song I'm bringing today, don't get me wrong. It's not my original song, but a new song that hasn't been released on the market yet, which I asked from a very good friend. A very good friend? Murphy took a deep breath. Guazi's exaggerated confession wasn't worth paying attention to. Then he started to hold the guitar and sing. The camera zoomed in on him. Murphy saw the guitar and raised her eyebrows slightly. Wasn't this the guitar that old master Hu Songnan had left for Yang Yi? The answer was obvious, but Murphy still found it hard to imagine. What is love? I don't know. Guazi's affectionate singing came from the speaker next to them. Jiningming also shook his head and hummed along. However, Murphy fell into a mess of thoughts. If Mu Ziong was Yang Yi, then all the doubts he had before would be cleared up. For example, he appeared when she was at her lowest and most uncomfortable point, and brought her a ray of hope in her music career. For example, when Mo Xiaowan shamelessly wanted more, he still had no regrets and took out the remaining 10 songs to help himself get enough for an album. For example, when those despicable people in the company wanted to divide her songs, he was able to find out in time and prepare the licensing contract in advance so that they could fight back against those despicable faces. It was after this incident that Mo Xiaowan expressed her doubts about why Mu Ziong had been hiding his identity. She inadvertently said, "Maybe it's because we know him?" Now that she thought about it, if Mu Ziong was really Yang Yi, then her words were really a prophecy. But why did Yang Yi hide his identity? Murphy frowned deeply. When Scorpios start to have doubts, their minds are not ordinary clear and flexible. Their ability to get to the bottom of things can't be underestimated. Only one thing came to Murphy's mind. She looked at Mo Xiaowan, who had just walked in with a box of food. She suddenly stood up and pulled Mo Xiaowan aside. "Sis, what's wrong? I just came back and I'm so tired. Can I have a drink?" Mo Xiaowan complained. Murphy looked into her eyes and asked seriously, "Xiaowan, do you remember the day Jianchua wanted to steal my song? Did you tell Yang Yi that we talked about the new album with Sister Ling and Jianchua the day before?" Mo Xiaowan scratched her head and said hesitantly, "Yes, I did. Brother-in-law called me the night before and asked me about it. But sis, don't misunderstand. Brother-in-law usually doesn't call me." Another clue had been connected. Hearing Mo Xiaojuan's explanation, Mo Fei just smiled. She patted Mo Xiaojuan's shoulder, but she looked like she had a lot on her mind. "Sis, don't misunderstand. There's nothing between brother-in-law and me." Mo Xiaowan was dumbfounded. She quickly pulled Murphy and said, she felt that she was in a bad situation. It seemed like she had been misunderstood. "Who said you and Yang Yi?" Murphy said angrily. "I'm thinking about something else. Don't mess around. Let me be alone." When the possibility of Yang Yi being Mu Ziong became more and more likely, Murphy realized that a lot of questions that she had ignored before could be explained. For example, some time ago, Yang Yi even said that even if Murphy started her own company, Mu Ziong would still write songs for her. If he himself is Mu Ziong, how dare he not write songs for his own woman? Right, there was also the name of his coffee shop. The coffee shop on the street corner. This name was obviously taken from the long time no see that he wrote to Chen Yijie. She had foolishly believed his nonsense and thought that the signboard was made later. Now that she thought about it, that signboard seemed to have been there for a long time. At that time, Murphy hadn't dealt with Yang Yi, but she had seen it when she picked up Shi. Speaking of Chen Yijie, Murphy remembered the first concert that she and Yang Yi went to. Wasn't that Chen Yijie's concert? No wonder Yang Yi could get a VIP seat in the front row. No wonder Chen Yijie said so many meaningful words on stage. And there was more. When her relationship with Yang Yi had improved, Murphy was still very conflicted. She had been worried that Yang Yi would be jealous if Mu Ziong wrote songs for her. Then she told Yang Yi. Now that she thought about it, she was really stupid. No wonder this guy didn't care at all. Murphy then understood that he really didn't care. Why would he be jealous of himself? This despicable guy. Murphy couldn't help but clench her teeth. Mo Xiaowan, who was beside them, was trembling with fear when she saw this during lunch. She thought that she had done something wrong. But why did Yang Yi hide all this from her? This was a question that Murphy couldn't figure out no matter how she thought about it. Or maybe Yang Yi wasn't Mu Ziong? Mu Xiang was just a friend of his. Then he asked Mu Xiang to do all this for him? Mo Fei frowned deeply. Her thoughts just now were shaken again. But very quickly, Murphy shook her head. She felt that it was impossible. After all, there were too many clues that she had connected previously. Every one of them pointed to an answer. Moreover, how could there be someone so outstanding that he would be willing to hide himself and contribute selflessly to another person? So there shouldn't be another Mu Xiang. It could only be Yang Yi. This man who loved her would do so much for her silently. Thinking of this, Murphy felt a warm feeling in her heart. Although she still blamed this bastard for hiding his identity, this guy made her nervous about being jealous of him. Now that she thought about it, she felt embarrassed. Maybe he was laughing in his heart at that time. But while Murphy blamed Yang Yi, she also couldn't suppress the joy in her heart. If Yang Yi was really Mu Xiang, would she still need to be so conflicted and have so many worries? He could openly sing the love song that he wrote for her. She didn't need to worry that she would fall in love with someone else. Although there was still an afternoon of recording, Murphy couldn't wait to see Yang Yi. And this bastard. Chapter 243. In the evening, Yang Yi's tyrannical wolf slowly drove into the underground parking lot of Tianmei's building. Murphy, who was already waiting there, got in. "Mom, let me tell you, Teacher Shen is teaching us how to dance today." Shi, who had been sitting in the back seat for a long time, couldn't wait to tell her mother. Shi will dance for you when we get back, okay? Today her mother wasn't sitting in the back with Shi. The little girl was a little uncomfortable. But it didn't matter. Shi was very happy to return to kindergarten after a week. She couldn't care less about this small problem. The little girl couldn't wait to tell her mother and father all the new things that happened today. After Murphy got in the car, she looked at Yang Yi with an indescribably strange expression, as if she had never seen Yang Yi before. Yang Yi, who was focused on driving, felt a little numb in his heart. But fortunately, Shi was joking around. Murphy looked away and chatted with the little girl. Yang Yi thought that he had sensed wrongly. He drove with a smile while listening to their conversation. But he didn't have a chance to interrupt. Shi had already spoken. The little girl's mouth was dry from talking. When Murphy turned around to take the little girl's school bag and took out a water bottle for her to drink, Yang Yi asked with concern, "How was the recording today?" Murphy let Shi hold the water bottle and drink with a straw. She turned around and said, "I recorded a few good ones in the morning, but I wasn't in a good state in the afternoon." Teacher Jean almost got angry. "Why were you in a bad state?" Yang Yi asked casually. Murphy pursed her lips, turned around and rolled her eyes at him. She snorted and said, "It's all because of you. It's all your fault." Because of me? Why would you blame me?" Yang Yi was a little confused. "It's all your fault." However, because Shi was looking at them curiously from behind, Murphy did not continue. Yang Yi thought that she was just throwing a tantrum because she had encountered a problem at work and was in a bad mood, so he did not take it to heart. In the evening, after Shi fell asleep, Murphy walked into Yang Yi's study in her long-sleeved pajamas. Yang Yi was typing on the keyboard, adding some chapters of Yu Zue. His speed of updating had been criticized by the readers, but he had never stopped updating, so he still had some credibility. "Why aren't you sleeping yet?" Yang Yi looked away from the computer screen and glanced at Murphy, who was gently stroking the guitar. "It should be this guitar. The style is exactly the same." Murphy looked at the guitar hanging on the wall and whispered softly, "I want to talk to you." Yang Yi originally thought that there was no chance tonight, because Murphy had to protect her voice because she had to record a song. But now that he heard Murphy's whisper, he could not help but feel his heart skip a beat. He patted his thigh and said to Murphy, who had just turned around, "Come sit here and talk." After all, his chair could not sit two people side by side. However, Murphy heard Yang Yi's magnetic voice, and her face turned red. She angrily said, "What? Thinking about tormenting yourself every day, don't you want your body?" Could it be that it was not what he thought? Yang Yi scratched his head awkwardly. There was a long sofa in the study. Murphy sat down and patted the seat next to her. It was a bit like an order, but also a bit like a rebuke. She ordered, "Come here." Murphy was even more beautiful at night. Her neck that her pajamas could not cover was as smooth as jade, and her exquisite collarbone outlined a beautiful arc. In front of such beauty, Yang Yi naturally threw the keyboard down and sat down. "Sit down, sit down. I want to talk to you about business." Murphy blushed as she pushed away the claws of this restless guy and said sternly. Yang Yi then realized that Murphy did not have any intention of flirting with him. She slightly pouted, just like in the evening, and looked at Yang Yi with a strange expression. He could not tell what was strange about it. It seemed to be a bit wronged and also a bit of scrutiny, which made Yang Yi's hair stand on end. "What's wrong?" Yang Yi asked, puzzled. Murphy's slender fingers pinched the hem of her clothes and fiddled with it. She closely looked into Yang Yi's eyes, and after a while, she mumbled word by word, "Mu Xiang." Yang Yi was stunned, and Murphy saw the panic in his eyes. Although it was just a flash and was quickly concealed, Murphy, who had been paying attention in advance, caught this change. "You are Mu Xiang, right? Don't quibble." Murphy's tone was a step closer. Yang Yi opened his mouth but did not say anything. In fact, at first, Yang Yi still wanted to defend himself, but Mo Fei's eyes had obviously seen through his flaws. Even if he tried to quibble, it would be useless. Moreover, Yang Yi did not want to hide this matter forever, so when the quibbling words came to his mouth, he could not say them. Although he did not directly admit it, Yang Yi's behavior was not obvious. Murphy could not help but smile. Now that she had gotten the answer to her question, the heavy burden in her heart could finally be lifted. However, Yang Yi did not want to quibble or admit it now. He had some professional after effects, so he subconsciously analyzed where he had exposed his flaws. His brain worked very quickly. When he saw Murphy looking at the guitar just now, he thought of the only thing that could have been a problem recently. "You saw the video of Guazi singing that song at the freshman's party?" Yang Yi wanted to confirm his guess. "Yeah." Speaking of this made her even angrier. Murphy pouted, feeling wronged. She clenched her fists and hammered Yang Yi's chest angrily. "If I didn't find out, you would still be hiding it from me. Hurry up and admit that you are Mu Xiang, you bastard." Murphy's fists were weak. Although Yang Yi did not feel any pain, he was afraid that his muscles would hurt Murphy. He quickly grabbed both of Murphy's wrists, pulled them to his waist, and took the opportunity to hug Murphy in his arms. Okay. I admit it. I admit that I am Mu Xiang. Don't be angry," Yang Yi said softly in Murphy's ear, as if he was coaxing Shishi. Hearing Yang Yi admitted himself, Murphy completely relaxed, but she still felt wronged. Thinking that this guy had been hiding it from her for so long, although Yang Yi was hugging Murphy, she still angrily bit Yang Yi's shoulder. In fact, she did not bite that hard, so it did not hurt. She only left a few shallow teeth marks and saliva. It was nothing compared to the teeth marks and claw marks she left on Yang Yi's shoulder and back at night when she was afraid of disturbing Shishi but could not suppress the cry in her throat. "Why didn't you tell me directly? Did you have to hide it from me?" Murphy stood up in grievance, looked into Yang Yi's eyes and said, "Did you want to see me make a fool of myself? I was worried that you would be jealous at that time." "No, why would I be? I'm happy that you care about my feelings," Yang Yi hurriedly said. "You see, you are so happy that you are secretly laughing," Murphy said. "What I mean is that I really like your straightforwardness." "Alright, I apologize. It's my fault. I shouldn't have hidden it from you. However, I have my own difficulties. I didn't mean to hide it from you," said Yang Yi. "Then tell me what difficulties." Murphy pouted, looking unhappy. It seemed that if Yang Yi did not give a reasonable explanation, he was not allowed to touch her today. Chapter 244. In fact, Yang Yi had already thought of an explanation, but he had been waiting for the right time to say it. Now was obviously not the right time, because he had not shown his violin skills yet, and he had not thought about how to let Murphy know that he had the ability to compose music. But now that Murphy had found out, Yang Yi had to say it even if it was not the right time. Yang Yi stood up and took an army green sling bag from the bookshelf. This was the treasure of his predecessor. Yang Yi sat back on the sofa, opened the sling bag, and carefully took out a few gold-plated bronze military medals from it. He arranged them in a straight line, then took out a Battle Wolf Special Forces military officer certificate that could not be exposed, and gently placed it on top. Murphy knew that Yang Yi used to be a soldier, but after she got along with Yang Yi, she found that Yang Yi was secretive about his past, so she did not ask too much. But now that Yang Yi had placed it in front of her, Murphy looked at the golden military medals with the bright red national flag, and she could not help but think of some of the scars on Yang Yi's body, especially the 2 bullet wounds that penetrated his chest and back. Her soft heart trembled just like the first time she touched it. I used to be a soldier of a special force. Yang Yi seemed to be unveiling the fog covering his body to Murphy, and said softly, "Our force is a little different from ordinary garrisons. Even now, on the surface, it is peaceful and peaceful. There will still be many fierce small-scale battles that require us to take part in. For example, drug lords in the southwest jungle, or some restless warlords of small countries. Our force even has some special training that allows us to sneak into some special occasions to execute beheading or hostage rescue plans. For example, we disguised ourselves and sneaked onto a gambling ship on the high seas to rescue a kidnapped businessman." Yang Yi began to make up stories, and only Murphy, who had no understanding of the real army, foolishly believed him. Some people say that the highest level of lying is to tell the truth with 99% of the truth and 1% of the lies. Now, regardless of how much Yang Yi's explanation was mixed with, he still said some of the key points that Murphy wanted to hear. "So I received training in firearms and cold weapons, and also a lot of miscellaneous courses, like many languages. I can speak English, and I learned it at that time," Yang Yi said. "Oh right." Murphy remembered the birthday song that Yang Yi sang to Shishi, and the English version. Although it was very simple, Yang Yi's pronunciation were clear and accurate. Obviously, he could not do this without learning English. Guitar, piano, and other musical instruments. Maybe because I have a higher talent in music, I learned better than other students, Yang Yi said. "You call that a higher talent? You play guitar and piano like a beginner." "Wait a minute," Murphy complained, but she soon realized that something was wrong. She pursed her lips and said unhappily, "You're pretending, right?" Yang Yi nodded awkwardly. "Yes. I originally wanted you to see my progress. And then when everything is logical and you don't feel that there is a sudden and unacceptable change, I will explain it to you in detail." In fact, Yang Yi had not only prepared an explanation, but he also thought that if his real ability was gradually accepted by Murphy, he might as well go with the flow. This way, he could use his real identity to write songs for Murphy, without having to explain too much. It didn't matter even if the identity of Mu Xiang was abandoned. Yang Yi didn't want to enter the entertainment industry and didn't want fame, so it didn't matter whether he kept the identity of Mu Xiang or not, as long as Murphy didn't suspect that he was a time traveler. Murphy didn't know that Yang Yi had thought so much. She was still puzzled. "No, I still don't understand. When you met me, and when I met you again after more than 4 years, why did you pretend that you didn't know anything? You even deliberately angered me." It wasn't pretending that he didn't know anything. The Yang Yi at that time really didn't know anything. As Murphy thought about it, she felt very uncomfortable. She said a little angrily, "Do you think that I am an unreasonable woman, or a woman who loves vanity? If you told me that you had received these training from the beginning, and showed me that you could play the piano, play the guitar, and write songs, would I have stuck to you shamelessly?" These conjectures had just appeared in her heart. If she didn't say it out loud, she would explode. "How could it be? You haven't finished listening to my explanation." When Yang Yi saw that Murphy was starting to get angry, he knew that he couldn't keep her in suspense. He quickly said, "My previous experiences were strictly confidential. Even if I had to leave the army for some special reasons, I still had to sign a confidentiality agreement for 5 years. In these 5 years, I can't mention my experiences in the army to anyone. Similarly, I can't show anyone the skills that I learned in the army. This is absolutely not allowed." There was indeed a confidentiality agreement, but it wasn't so strict that he had to hide all his skills. Yang Yi was still using 99% of the truth to cover up his 1% of the lie. But Murphy foolishly believed it. After hearing Yang Yi's explanation, her anger suddenly disappeared. She hesitated for a moment and said, "So before you?" "That's right. That was during the confidentiality period, so I couldn't do anything about it. Moreover, I had to watch your comeback fail." Yang Yi said apologetically, "It's not your fault." Murphy's anger had completely disappeared. Her fingers gently stroked the military medals, as if she could see the origin of the scars on Yang Yi's body. "You were also restricted. You had no choice." "Then is the 5-year confidentiality period over?" Murphy asked. "It's over." Yang Yi nodded. Actually, Yang Yi's retirement from the army to his arrival wasn't just 5 years. If one were to calculate it carefully, there was still a small loophole. But who asked Murphy to be bad at math? She didn't even know that she was being bullied. Murphy pursed her lips. It wasn't clear whether it was because she was wronged or because her anger had dissipated. Actually, I'm not that unopen-minded. If you had told me directly after the confidentiality period, I wouldn't have minded. You didn't have to be so fierce to me and make me have a problem with you at that time. It's all my fault. It's mainly because I care about you too much. I was afraid that you would be afraid of my sudden change, and then leave me." Yang Yi said softly as he put away the military medal and officer certificate. He felt as though a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. Perhaps she was moved by Yang Yi's concern. Murphy was in a good mood. She pouted and said, I wouldn't leave you because I was afraid. At most, I would be fierce to you." "I, Yang Yi, swear to the heavens that I will never be fierce to Murphy again. Otherwise, I'll be struck by lightning." Yang Yi raised 3 fingers and swore. "Don't be in a hurry to swear. I still have a lot of questions to ask you." Murphy pulled down Yang Yi's fingers. "What questions?" "At that time, you told me in the email that the song, In My Voice, was not written for me, Murphy, but for a girl that you deeply liked. Tell me, who is this girl?" Murphy pouted and asked. She wanted to dig up old scores and get to the bottom of it." Chapter 245. In fact, Murphy knew who Yang Yi wrote In My Voice for. But now, she was a little worried about Yang Yi, so she had to say it herself. Looking at Murphy's pouting red lips, Yang Yi's heart skipped a beat. He smiled gently and said, "Do you still need to say it? You're the only woman I've ever liked in my past and present life." In both his past and present life, this sounded like a pledge of eternal love to coax a woman. But Yang Yi wasn't exaggerating. This was the truth. Then who was coming across the sea to see you for? Murphy pursed her lips and said, "What do you think?" Yang Yi felt that Murphy's current appearance was very cute. She was like a child asking for a reward, looking at him eagerly and anticipating that sentence. He couldn't help but like her and pinched her perky nose. "Of course it's you. Who else could it be?" "I knew it. You knew I was in Jiangcheng, so you came to find me. I thought it was a coincidence that I met you." Murphy giggled. In her opinion, many of Yang Yi's songs were written for her. For example, First Dream. How close was it to her situation? Although this was a beautiful misunderstanding, Yang Yi saw Murphy's sweet look and didn't expose it. However, Murphy thought of something. Her eyes suddenly became a little disappointed. She said in a low voice, "The song you wrote for Chen Yijia, Long Time No See. Was it because you came to Jiangcheng but I didn't treat you well, so you felt very depressed?" How could she make such a connection? "Although you didn't treat me well at that time, my temper isn't very good," Murphy said with self-blame. Yang Yi didn't want Murphy to be sad. He explained, "Actually, the situation was different from what was described in the song. When I wrote this song, I did come to Jiangcheng. But at that time, I was still looking for a job, so I didn't meet you. I encountered some problems in my life and felt lonely for so many years. Then, I passed by a coffee shop and thought of you. Suddenly, I had the inspiration for this song." "Why do I feel like you're comforting me?" Murphy's intuition was very accurate. However, Murphy still chose to believe in Yang Yi. She was touched by the word loneliness that Yang Yi mentioned. She reached out to grab Yang Yi's big hand and said, No, we won't. In the future, we and she will be together. We won't be lonely. Yang Yi looked at Murphy's sincere expression and felt a warm current in his heart. He also nodded solemnly. However, Murphy let go of Yang Yi's hand again. She pouted like a goldfish and said, "No, I can't forgive you so quickly. I'm very angry about your dishonest behavior. I'm strongly condemning you for hiding my identity from me, and then secretly laughing at my sorry state." Then what can I do to make you forgive me?" Yang Yi scratched his head. Murphy thought carefully and said, "First of all, you have to promise that you'll never lie to me again, no matter what." Yang Yi quickly raised 3 fingers and repeated the oath that he had made before. "Then think about it. Is there anything else that you're hiding from me?" Murphy asked. Yang Yi thought about it and thought of something. "Oh, there is, but it's not suitable to tell you now." "No, say it," Murphy said angrily. "There's something that you're hiding from me." Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and said frankly, "Last time, didn't I advise you to wait until the contract ended and jump out to open your own studio? In fact, Mo Xiaowan talked to me about your situation last month. I also think that there's no need for you to stay in Tianmei. The first reason is that I don't want you to be like before, flying all over the country and rushing to commercial performances every day. The second reason is that your boss is not an ordinary woman. She's very shrewd and sinister. I don't feel at ease with you renewing the contract with her. The last reason I told you is that I hope you can be closer to home. So I also agree with Mo Xiaojuan's suggestion to let you set up your own studio and go solo." Before Yang Yi finished speaking, Murphy had a flash of inspiration. She said, "Xiaowan has already started, hasn't she? I was wondering why she often asked for leave and moved to Tingshan." "Yes, I gave her an investment and asked her to find someone to build the framework of the studio. When your contract ends, it can officially operate." Yang Yi smiled and said, "Of course, if you want to leave early, wait a few months. I'll save 40 million yuan for the breach of contract and directly buy you out." "No," Murphy cried. She paused and said hesitantly, "What you're telling me now is too sudden. I haven't thought about leaving Tianmei at all." She did have such an idea, but it was difficult for her to make up her mind. "It doesn't matter. You can focus on this album first. As long as you don't stupidly renew the contract with Tianmei, we can slowly discuss how to deal with it later," Yang Yi said. "You're the one who's stupid." Murphy rebuked and rolled her eyes at him. "Anyway, don't worry. No matter what kind of problem you encounter, I'm here. Don't be afraid." Yang Yi patted his chest and said, "Yes." It was the second time that Yang Yi said such words in front of Murphy. Before, Murphy thought that Yang Yi was making her happy. Now that she knew that Yang Yi was Mu Xiang, she knew that Yang Yi was not lying. He really had the ability to help her. "Thank you, Yang Yi." Murphy was so moved that there were some tears in her eyes. Compared to a few months ago, he was already so happy that he couldn't be any happier. At the beginning, she thought that it was an extravagant request for Yang Yi's support to pursue her music dream. Okay. Yang Yi reached out to wipe the tears from Murphy's eyes and said, "Do you need to be so moved? I didn't do anything." "No, you've supported me silently for so long. I only know now. I used to think that you were very bad and only knew how to bully me." Murphy rubbed her eyes and smiled sweetly. "Then can you forgive me?" Yang Yi's fingertips scratched Murphy's palm that was holding his hand and asked softly. Murphy withdrew her hand as if she was afraid of being tickled. She mischievously giggled and said, "Not yet, I still have one last request." "Say it. No matter if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, I promise that I won't blink an eye." Yang Yi waved his hand and said proudly, "I want you to sing for me, but I won't make it difficult for you. If you can't sing in my voice and crossing the ocean to see you, then sing Long Time No See for me. I really like this song. Oh, I'll give you a guitar. You have to sing with the guitar." Murphy mischievously jumped down from the sofa, and then took the guitar hanging on the wall. She smiled and stuffed it into Yang Yi's arms. "Sing." This naturally wasn't a problem. Yang Yi was now a lot more confident. He secretly practiced his voice for a period of time. Although it didn't reach a level that he was satisfied with, Using his internal strength, he could actually sing in my voice once. However, it was rare for him to show off in front of Murphy. How could Yang-yi not give it his all? What's the big deal about singing Long Time No See? Long Time No See is not suitable for our current atmosphere. I'll sing you a new song, a song that I wrote not long ago. Yang-yi gently plucked the strings of the guitar, but stopped and said softly, "New song?" Murphy's interest grew. She slightly raised her voice and said, "Then I want to hear you sing a new song." Chapter 246. Although he decided to sing a new song, Yang-yi did not start. He looked at Murphy strangely and said, "Sing here? The sound is too loud. What if she wakes up? Let's go to my room." Don't know why, Murphy felt that Yang-yi's words had a hidden meaning. Then let's go to your room, but you're not allowed to do anything bad. Under the dim light, Murphy's face was flushed red as if she had drunk wine. She bit her lower lip and said solemnly, "Just sing." Yang-yi promised. However, this kind of promise, he seemed to have never fulfilled it. The two left the computer that had not been saved and turned off, and went to Yang-yi's bedroom. The light bulb burned at night, and Yang-yi did not have time to change it. The pale yellow light bulb made the simple bedroom look like a new house. Murphy sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Yang-yi, who was busy moving a chair. She pursed her lips and said, "Just sit next to me. Why do you need to move a chair?" Yang-yi smiled and sat down on the left side of Murphy with his guitar. Murphy had just taken a bath and her body exuded a faint fragrance. Without any delay, Yang-yi plucked the guitar strings in his arms and began to play. The prelude was very simple. The lively melody seemed to open a fresh picture. Murphy listened carefully. Just from the prelude, she knew that this was a new song. It was not one of her 12 songs, nor was it the song University Days sung by Guazi. The prelude was very short. Yang-yi's magnetic voice mixed in with the clear melody. "We cried, we laughed." As soon as he opened his mouth, Mo Fei heard the difference from before. Although it was still a low singing style, Yang-yi's voice could sink down just right, vividly reflecting the appeal of his magnetic voice. We looked up at the sky. There were still a few stars. It was really different. Even if Yang-yi could sing with such a tone before, he could not sing with such a perfect volume. However, Murphy paid more attention to the lyrics that Yang-yi sang. She looked at Yang-yi's handsome side face in fascination. It was as if she was brought into that mood by him. Did he find the inspiration when they were chatting on the balcony? We sang the Song of Time. Yang-yi was already gently shaking his head along with the melody. Only then did we understand why we embraced each other. Hearing this, Murphy was still carefully savoring the meaning of Yang-yi's lyrics. However, suddenly, Yang-yi's voice changed, as if he had suddenly turned into a fast lane. Moreover, it was a super fast lane that made her scalp tingle when she heard it. Because I just happened to. Yang-yi instantly increased the support of his internal energy. It was as if he was pinching his throat and suddenly sang with the tone of a classic actor in a Beijing opera. "Meeting you, leaving behind footprints is beautiful." The soft and mellow female voice that came out of Yang-yi's mouth suddenly made Murphy dumbfounded. It was not that it was bad. If she only listened to the voice, Murphy would definitely think that it was a different person singing. However, Yang-yi, a big living person, was sitting right in front of her. What the hell was this charming voice? As if he knew that Murphy was wondering if her ears were playing tricks on her, Yang-yi sang 2 more verses. It was still a male voice that changed to a female voice. "The wind blows and the flowers fall. Tears fall like rain, because we can't part, because we just happened to meet you, leaving behind 5 years of hope." Murphy finally could not help but reveal a surprised expression. She covered her mouth and looked at Yang-yi in disbelief. After changing back to a male voice, although Yang-yi continued to play and sing, the corners of his mouth slightly curled up, as if he had succeeded in a little prank. After all, he had already confessed. Yang-yi no longer sealed his ability. If he wanted to show it, he would show it in all aspects. Although Murphy's heart was full of doubts, she did not interrupt Yang-yi. Instead, she calmed down and listened quietly. The lyrics of this song were relatively simple. The second time it was repeated word for word, but the melody was beautiful. It was almost impossible to get tired of listening to it 100 times. Murphy temporarily put aside her doubts about the change of male and female voices, and listened carefully, savoring the meaning of the lyrics word by word. Because we just happened to meet you, leaving behind footprints is beautiful. The wind blows and the flowers fall like rain. Because we can't part, because we just happened to meet you, leaving behind 5 years of hope. If we meet again, I think I will remember you. It turned out that this song was so beautiful. Murphy realized that she had been delayed by Yang Yi's dazzling skills just now. Only now did she realize that these lyrics were not writing bits and pieces of her and Yang Yi. Under the dim yellow light, Murphy was in a trance. It was as if she had returned to that night she did not want to recall. No, the beautiful thing should be that morning. The leaves of the maple forest were like bright red flames. Although there were no flowers, it seemed that the maple leaves that were blown down by the wind also fit the concept of the wind blows and the flowers fall like rain. Was this a confession from this bad guy? Because they just happened to meet, leaving behind footprints in a world where they originally had no intersection. Because of that one encounter, he had been looking forward to meeting her again for 5 years. At this moment, Murphy recalled that when the two of them met again in Jiangcheng, it was Murphy who took the initiative to acknowledge him. What kind of expression he had at that time, Murphy could not remember clearly. But in this song, Yang Yi sang very clearly, "I think I will remember you." That should be a heart full of joy and pretending to be calm, right? Murphy was now very sure that this guy, Yang Yi, was using this song to confess to her. Although the two of them were already together, this confession was like a compensation confession after his hidden identity was revealed. The beautiful mood, the clear melody, and Yang Yi's outstanding humming. Murphy listened to this song as if she had drunk a glass of wine. She, who could not handle the alcohol, had an intoxicated flush on her face. Those 5 years of expectations were his longing for her. So in those 5 years, Yang Yi still could not forget her? This song was like honey, so sweet that it reached her heart. If we meet again, I think I will remember you. At the end, Yang Yi switched back to his calm male voice. It was still a clean and fresh melody. There was no drag, just a few loops, as if reluctant to part, before it slowly came to a stop. When Murphy started listening, she had a lot of questions to ask Yang Yi. For example, how could Yang Yi sing in such a falsetto? For example, was Yang Yi pretending that his voice was not good? But were these questions still important? When Murphy heard the end, she forgot everything. She just bit her lower lip and looked at Yang Yi with her watery eyes. How is it? Can you forgive me now? Yang Yi held the guitar and asked gently. If you are not satisfied with this song, I still have. What a familiar conversation. It was just like the night they confirmed their relationship. But this time, Murphy did not make things difficult for Yang Yi. She pulled up Yang Yi's hand that was still on the guitar to stop him from playing. Then, just like that, she looked at him emotionally. However, Yang Yi was a little uncertain. He was still very nervous. He scratched his head and asked, So do you forgive me? Mo Fei bit her lower lip, raised her eyelids, and rolled her eyes at Yang Yi with her watery eyes, but she did not answer directly. She just said softly, Actually, it's just one time. It won't have much impact tomorrow. At night, the guitar was casually thrown under the bed by the ecstatic person. It lay there quietly, helplessly listening to the light singing of the overlapping person and the bed. That was the most moving melody. Chapter 247. In a strange city, in a familiar corner. In Murphy's personal recording studio, Murphy wore a fully enclosed headset and sat on a chair, singing affectionately into the microphone. Last night's lingering passion was no longer the same as before, which had troubled her recording work. It seemed that Yang Yi had changed from his previous bayonet charge to his delicate tender care and considerate early retreat, so that Murphy would not be tormented too hard. Now, she was probably only left with the rosy and translucent skin on her face, and a trace of happiness from last night's climb to the peak. Of course, a proper amount of pleasure was still very beneficial. Murphy was recording for the first time today. When she walked out of the recording studio, Jean Ingming, who was monitoring in front of the computer, could not wait to raise his arms and cheer at her. He even gave her a thumbs up. Awesome. That's great, the standard this time is very, very high. It's even better than yesterday's. Mo Shawan was also sitting at the side. She took off her headset and asked with some confusion. What's so good about it? Why do I feel like it's the same as yesterday? No, Shawan, you don't understand. Murphy's singing today is very much better than yesterday's. Ji Ningming explained to Mo Shawan with a smile. Of course, if you analyze it purely from the singing style, Murphy's singing style is indeed not much different from yesterday. But pay attention to the emotional expression when she sings. In Murphy's voice today, besides the sadness from the past, there is also a kind of sweetness. With this sweetness, I feel that the feeling of singing is immediately different, as if it has been sublimated all of a sudden. Ji Ningming seemed to have discovered something amazing. He was in high spirits, gesticulating with joy as he described to Mo Shawan. However, the person he was talking to obviously had a problem. Mo Shawan could not understand Ji Ningming's details. She gulped down a mouthful of water, then said calmly, Anyway, what you mean is that this is better than yesterday's. Are we going to use this sound source in the future? Ji Ningming's hand stopped in the air gloomily. He found that his happiness for a while was like playing pearls to a cow. But fortunately, when it was not recording a song, his temper was not bad. He waved his hand and said helplessly, You can't say that. The sweet singing style does make this song sound a lot better, but we haven't done a real comparison yet. I don't know if the general audience is more inclined to the pure sad singing style or Mo Fei's current singing style. Murphy sat by the side and listened to them quietly. Then, she picked up the monitoring headset and drank some throat-soothing tea, while carefully listening to the audio she had just recorded. Teacher Jean, can I go and sing a few more times? I feel that there are still some things that aren't handled well, Murphy said softly. Good. Let's continue. Ji Ningming appreciated Murphy's dedication to music and said in high spirits. After revealing Mu Ziang's identity, Yang Yi seemed to have put down a heavy psychological burden. He looked like a different person and was in high spirits in the coffee shop. He even rolled up his sleeves, pulled Ding Xiang out, and took her place to make coffee for the customers. Moreover, he did it for the whole morning. This situation was rarely seen after Ding Xiang started working in the coffee shop, especially since Ding Xiang didn't have classes today and was working part-time in the coffee shop. Brother Yang, if you continue like this, I will lose my job. Ding Xiang couldn't watch the boss being busy while she sat on the side doing nothing. She had to take out a rag and wipe the coffee shop's floor-to-ceiling windows. When she turned on the tap, she couldn't help but complain. This girl worked in the coffee shop and had a stable income. Gradually, she grew a lot. Yang Yi still remembered that when he first saw her, she was a little shy. Although she liked to smile, she always had an inferiority complex that couldn't be hidden. Now she was pretty good. She was much more confident and smiled more brightly. She wasn't so restrained and would occasionally joke with Yang Yi. Don't worry, I saw that there weren't many customers in the morning, so I came to revise. Don't let me leave all the work to you and forget how to make coffee. Yang Yi smiled faintly and explained. Just as they were chatting, the wind chime at the door rang. Another customer had arrived. Hello. Welcome. Ding Xiang quickly turned around and greeted the other party with a smile. Yang Yi didn't want to go through so much trouble, but Ding Xiang insisted on doing it. In her words, only by treating customers with sincerity, the customers wouldn't be disgusted, and there would be more repeat customers. However, this time, the customer wasn't a repeat customer, but an acquaintance. Ding Xiang was stunned after greeting them. She stood there blankly with the rag in her hand. To be exact, in the pair of customers, Ding Xiang was an acquaintance. She had seen them before, but they didn't know her on the other side. Yang Yi looked up and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He knew them too. In this pair of customers, the boy who was being held by the girl, wasn't he the big boy who came to his shop to apply for the position of a pianist? Yang Yi carefully recalled the other party's name. Yes, it was the self-proclaimed bar singer, Lin Muan. Lin Muan's appearance was quite delicate and pretty. Like most of the boys in Guangdong province, he had an introverted temperament. Of course, the girl holding his hand wasn't bad either. Although she wasn't tall, she was quiet and gentle, like a pretty girl from a humble family. The two of them looked very compatible. Ding Xiang was also sizing up the girl. In her impression, she had met her senior Mao Peifu a few times at the student activity center. She had some impression of her. Of course, they didn't know each other. Ding Xiang didn't know which school she was from. Isn't it too expensive? The girl looked at the price list and flinched a little. She gently pulled Lin Muan's hand. Why don't we go to the East Gate? Indeed, whether it was milk tea or coffee, the East Gate was cheaper. Of course not. I'm here to treat you to coffee today. Lin Muan glanced at the piano next to him, gritted his teeth and firmly said, How can the coffee at the East Gate compare to here? I heard that the coffee here is freshly ground. Yes, our coffee here is freshly ground. The taste is better than those instant coffee. Ding Xiang smiled and took the initiative to introduce. And it just so happens that our boss is free today. He personally made coffee for the customers. His craftsmanship is not ordinary. It's not easy for you to make money. The girl softly said to Lin Muan, I'm not greedy. Wait a minute. Lin Muan made up his mind. He patted his girlfriend's hand and walked toward Yang Yi, who was pretending to be invisible at the bar. Hello boss, do you remember me? Lin Muan asked. Yang Yi didn't take the initiative to greet him, but he also didn't reject him. He just smiled gently and nodded to him. It's like this, we want to spend money in your coffee shop, but we have a small presumptuous request. Lin Muan said hesitantly, that is, can I borrow your piano? Chapter 248. Yang Yi didn't expect Lin Muan's request. Also, when he remembered that this guy also wanted to apply to be a pianist in the shop, Yang Yi suddenly had a strange feeling of, I treat you as a customer, but you want to play my piano? Seeing Yang Yi's stunned expression, Lin Muan thought that he had no chance, but he still wanted to fight for it. Boss, it's just one song, just one song. I promise I'll be careful. I won't use too much strength, and I won't damage your piano. Putting away that strange thought, Yang Yi glanced at the girl behind Lin Muan, and then understood his thoughts. The piano in the shop was originally set up for people to play, but I have a small rule here. Since you want to play in my shop, you have to show some real skills. If I think you play well, I'll treat you and your girlfriend to 2 cups of coffee. Yang Yi smiled slightly. But if you don't perform well, not only do you have to pay for these 2 cups of coffee, but you also have to buy a cupcake in the shop. This request isn't too much, right? Yang Yi's words were naturally not to make things difficult for Lin Muan, who was somewhat poor. Although Yang Yi didn't interrupt the conversation between Lin Muan and his girlfriend, he heard every word. He knew Lin Muan's financial situation. It was estimated that he wasn't much better than Qianli Chuanshu. Yang Yi could give Qianli Chuanshu a chance to show himself, so naturally, he would also give Lin Muan a chance. As for the so-called conditions and rewards, they were just incentives and gifts that Yang Yi deliberately gave him. Back then, this guy had the courage to apply to be a pianist in the shop. He shouldn't be a fake, right? Yang Yi's words made Lin Muan overjoyed and he quickly nodded. He was still very confident in himself. He didn't even ask Yang Yi in detail about his judgment standards. He clenched his fist and said excitedly, Boss, thank you, thank you. Lin Muan turned around and whispered a few words to his girlfriend. The girl didn't refute her boyfriend anymore. She only blushed and sat down in a booth. During this time, Ding Xiang, who was holding a rag, walked to the bar counter. She confusedly asked Yang Yi and lowered her voice. Brother Yang Yi, since when did our shop have this kind of rule? I don't seem to remember. The girl thought that she remembered wrongly. She took out a small notebook from her pocket and seriously prepared to write down Yang Yi's words. Yang Yi couldn't help laughing when he saw this. He said to Ding Xiang softly, Today. After Lin Muan settled his girlfriend, he bowed slightly to Yang Yi and sat down in front of the piano. He's the piano as a piano instrument, a piano, but more than that, he wanted to perform for his girlfriend. SSSSSTS. Yang Yi raised his eyebrows in the pleasant sound of the piano. He could tell from the prelude that Lin Mu and wasn't going to play pure music like Jian Yifan. The harmonious melody and bold and casual vocal parts were obviously the prelude to pop music. After the lively prelude slowed down, Lin Muan gently sang, "He's always been able to control himself, he won't lose control." It was Cantonese. Yang Yi also realized that this was a song he had never heard before. He raised his eyebrows and listened attentively. Lin Muan's girlfriend had already recognized the song when the prelude started. She was slightly excited and covered her mouth with both hands. Her eyes were fixed on Lin Muan, who was playing the piano and singing attentively. The only person in the shop who didn't understand Cantonese and what Lin Muan was singing was probably Ding Xiang. However, Ding Xiang also listened attentively and focused on Lin Muan, who was sitting in front of the piano. She had seen Lin Muan perform in the past, but that was in a bar, separated by a complicated and noisy wall of people. But afraid of nightmares, the lover no longer treats her well, sleeping in the arms, waking up still with you, accompanying you in the next life, never to be separated in this life. Lin Muan's voice was very unique. Although the timbre was only average, his range was very wide. He switched between real and falsetto very easily. Especially this song, which was obviously a few pitches higher than normal male songs, he was still able to sing it with ease. So this should be a female song? Yang Yi had a rough guess. Even if I met you by chance, God's will is the truth, but every second, every day, you give me 1,000 days to reminisce. To be honest, the lyrics at the beginning of the song weren't very well written. The mood was a bit depressing. However, it was as if there was a 90-degree turn here. The affectionate lyrics became lighter. As expected of the bar's resident singer, Yang Yi felt that Lin Muan's singing was really good. Whether it was warmth or passion, this big boy could control it very well. Moreover, as he played and sang, his voice was full of emotion. It's especially unbearable when it's dark. Fireworks don't know how to go on again. I don't want to be separated from you tonight. Lin Muan played gently, but suddenly his fingers exerted force. The rhythm accelerated, and he also raised his voice. He sang, "Casually order a cup of white coffee, wrapped in love with peace, sweet sugar is with him. Vegetarian is enough for my heart." Yang Yi was inexplicably happy. Why is this song related to coffee? No wonder he wanted to sing in a coffee shop. This environment, this atmosphere, it was as suitable as it could be. Of course, Yang Yi knew that this was actually just a coincidence. Lin Muan, this kid, obviously only had his eyes on his piano, not coffee. May you always remember my stubbornness and repentance. If I'm forgotten, no matter how sad I am, the pain will be wonderful, but I'll never be willing to give up my love. After the song was finished, Lin Muan raised his head from his affectionate playing and singing. He didn't know if it was because he wasn't confident enough or because of his own characteristics, but when he sang, he was almost completely immersed, in exchange for a strong burst of emotion in the song. It wasn't until the end of the song that he could slowly get rid of the emotion that resonated with the song. Lin Muan's performance was not accidental. When he sang in the bar, it was the same. He lacked interaction with the audience, so even if he sang well, there were still not many people who supported him, not to mention that he was singing a Cantonese song. Now in the middle of his playing and singing, he didn't interact with his girlfriend, but fortunately, it was his girlfriend. She also understood Lin Muan's habits, so she listened very carefully from beginning to end. It wasn't until Lin Muan turned his head that her face flushed with excitement, and she gave Lin Muan 2 thumbs up. This kind of interaction was also very simple, but Lin Muan enjoyed it very much. He grinned and revealed a happy smile. To be honest, this scene was still a little exciting for a single girl like Ding Xiang. After all, it was a dog abuse. Moreover, a good-looking jade-faced gentleman like Lin Muan was still more popular with girls. What's more, Lin Muan could play the piano and sing. Girls who liked romance more than reality would inevitably be attracted to him. However, Ding Xiang was still very clear. How could she care about romance now? Work and study were almost everything for her. Ding Xiang shook her head and smiled, then turned and walked into the toilet. After a while, she came out with a heavy bucket and wanted to go outside to clean the windows. After listening to the song, Yang Yi looked at Lin Muan and his girlfriend. These two young men and women who were indescribably compatible were showing off their love. He also shook his head, retracted his gaze, and cast his gaze on the shelf where the coffee beans were placed. Chapter 249. Lin Muan's performance had obviously been approved by Yang Yi. Yang Yi took down the innermost jar and carefully took out 2 Mandeli beans. Yang Yi wasn't a stingy person, but he wouldn't treat just anyone to Mandeli coffee. It wasn't because the specially made Mandeli coffee was expensive, but because he was worried that the other party wouldn't know how to taste it and would waste it. But Lin Muan was different. His relationship with his girlfriend made Yang Yi feel the need to bring out Mandeli. The sour taste of the coffee beans wasn't strong, but it was easy to distinguish. It also had a strong herbal fragrance. Wasn't it just like their love? After saying a few words to his girlfriend, Lin Muan walked over and looked at Yang Yi uneasily. "Boss, may I ask if my singing is okay? The song you sang just now was quite good. Is it your original song? What's the name?" Yang Yi didn't answer directly. He was concentrating on fiddling with his utensils. When Lin Muan was embarrassed and didn't know what to do, he asked. "No." Lin Muan quickly answered. "This song is called Sugar in the Coffee. It's a song by a singer in Hong Kong called Virgo. My girlfriend Ran Jean likes it a lot, so I sang it for her. This kind of name was very good, very powerful. Sugar in the coffee, in Hong Kong, meant to remove the sugar and not add any sugar. As for Virgo, Yang Yi couldn't help but want to laugh. Who would use the English word for Virgo as a name? Of course, Yang Yi only secretly criticized it. He still remembered the name of the song. He planned to buy it and play it in the shop later, so that the customers who drank coffee all day and added a lot of sugar could learn from it. Seeing that the atmosphere was about to become awkward again, Yang Yi brought 2 cups of freshly brewed coffee over. He smiled at Lin Muan and said, "These 2 cups of coffee are on me. You sang well. Keep it up, keep it up." Yang Yi's last sentence was, of course, to encourage Lin Muan. Every bar singer had a dream to walk on the real stage. Lin Muan should also be pursuing his music dream, just like Qianli Chuanshu and the other 2 boys. If he kept it up, Yang Yi felt that Lin Muan could also be as successful as Qianli Chuanshu. Lin Muan was a little stunned, and then a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He was already prepared to pay for the coffee. "Thank you, boss." Lin Muan happily carried the 2 cups of coffee and carefully moved back. He couldn't wait to tell his girlfriend the good news. Lin Muan's girlfriend ran Jean curiously to ask him something. Then she brought Lin Muan to meet with Yang. "Hello, boss. How are these 2 cups of coffee?" Compared to Lin Muan, Ran Jean was much more generous in dealing with people. She pushed Lin Muan and said softly, "It's not easy to do business these days. We're already very grateful that you let Muan borrow the piano. Why are you spending money to treat us to coffee?" Lin Muan also took out his wallet and waited for Yang Yi to say the number so that he could pay. Yang Yi couldn't help but laugh. He waved his hand and said, "What money? How much money can you students have? This time, I feel that I hit it off with Lin Muan, so I'll treat you to 2 cups of coffee. It's just 2 cups of coffee. What's so expensive about it?" "You've misunderstood. In fact, we've graduated several years ago," Ran Jin quickly explained. "I'm a counselor in Jiangchuan and Lin Muan also has his job. It's not like we don't have any income." Yes, we can still afford 2 cups of coffee." Lin Muan took out a $100 bill and said to Yang Yi, "Boss, just take the money." In fact, this $100 bill couldn't even afford a cup of mandelin on their table. Okay, you're rich. Come back next time when you have the opportunity to spend money." Yang Yi smiled and stuffed the $100 bill back into Lin Muan's hand. He said, "I'll treat you to 2 cups of coffee. It's also a rule of the shop. Lin Muan moved me with his singing." "Don't say so much, Lin Muan. You and I are both people who like music. You should understand my thoughts. Coffee has a price, but music is priceless. You've brought wonderful music to me and this coffee shop. Isn't that worth a cup of coffee?" Yang Yi said firmly. Ran Jean was indeed a counselor. Her EQ was higher than Lin Muan's. She didn't insist on giving the money. Instead, she asked Lin Mu and to put the money away. Then she said gratefully, "Thank you, boss. We'll come back next time, but don't refuse to pay again." Of course, the rule only works once. Yang Yi shrugged and smiled slightly. In the evening, Murphy and Mo Xiaowan sent Ji Ningming off. Mo Xiaowan comfortably stretched on the sofa and said lazily, "Sister, we finally finished recording this song. When Teacher Jean finishes the rest in 2 days, we can report back to the company. Last week, I was almost dying." Murphy looked at her cousin with a strange expression and said, "What? You're asking for leave again?" "It's not that I'm asking for leave. I just saw that you've been busy recording songs. Then it just so happens that Xiao Ai's place doesn't have all the furniture, so I wanted to find some time to go shopping with her. Don't worry. Sister, I know what I'm doing. I definitely won't hold you back." Mo Xiaowan climbed up from the sofa and giggled. However, she saw Murphy's eyes. Mo Xiaowan saw the ridicule in Murphy's eyes. Her heart suddenly thumped. She suppressed her wildly beating heart and carefully probed. "Sister, you already know?" Murphy actually wanted to tease this girl, but she didn't expect her to react so quickly. She went with the flow and nodded. "How did you know?" Mo Xiaowan asked with an awkward expression. "What do you think? Brother-in-law? Brother-in-law told you?" Mo Xiaowan was still very smart. She immediately thought of the key point. Murphy didn't hide it anymore. She nodded and then said angrily, "You said you wanted to set up this studio. Why didn't you discuss it with me in advance? You even bypassed me to ask Yang Yi for money. Don't tell me I don't have money to give you." Murphy's tone was more of a rebuke than a rebuke. Mo Xiaowan keenly sensed that she wasn't particularly angry. The big stone in her heart could finally be put down. She moved her butt to Murphy's side and giggled. Okay, sister, don't be angry. I have my reasons for doing this. If I told you directly, would you have agreed? Do you think I will agree if you act first and report later?" Mo Fei asked back. "Of course not. Didn't I want to slowly work on your ideas with brother-in-law? When the contract is over, we'll talk to Sister Ling. Then what if I renew the contract with Sister Ling? If you take Yang Yi's money, wouldn't you be wasting it?" Murphy was still a little unhappy. Yes. I didn't think it through. It's my fault. I'm a big idiot. Sister, don't be angry with me." Mo Xiaowan coquettishly twisted around. Mo Fei also didn't know what to do with this girl, who always pretended to be childish when she was in trouble. Besides, she didn't really care about this matter. As soon as Mo Xiaowan apologized, Mo Fei let her go. "Don't do it again. If you want to do something, you have to discuss it with me first." Murphy knocked her head and said, Yes, I promise. Also about the studio, don't tell Sister Ling. I haven't thought about it yet." Murphy finally hesitated and said softly, "Yes, sister. Once you've thought it through, we'll have a showdown with Sister Ling." Mo Xiaowan happily agreed to all the requests. This girl's happy appearance didn't look like she was admitting her mistake. Of course, she was happy because she didn't have to rack her brains for excuses to take time off. In the future, she could openly skip work. Chapter 250. For a family, the most important thing was to be together. Murphy, who had experienced loneliness, now deeply understood this point. After a hard day of recording songs, Murphy returned home with Yang Yi's care and Shishi's chattering. This was a kind of happiness, a very simple kind of happiness. Although it had become normal for the entertainment industry to have less reunion and more separation. Even if Murphy didn't run commercial performances, in the future, after the recording of her new album, it was inevitable that she would run around during the promotional period. However, Murphy still liked the warm feeling of being together as a family. Murphy found out that Yang Yi's identity was Mu Xiang, but it wasn't much different from before. This was like an ordinary episode. Murphy didn't force Yang Yi to write and sing new songs for her every day just because he was Mu Xiang. On the second day after their identities were exposed, Murphy sat in Yang Yi's car as usual and waited for Yang Yi's meticulously prepared food as usual. Then, the family finished dinner as usual, and went for a walk on the dam of the Grand Canal. Murphy and Yang-yi liked this kind of disciplined life very much. The only change was that Murphy, who was about to watch TV after the walk, was called to the study by Yang-yi excitedly, and then showed a new thing. This is called microbroadcasting. I asked Jiangchuan students to create a website some time ago. You can think of it as a simplified version of a blog. On microbroadcasting, you can use simple words, like text messages, to post your recent situation. You can also share your mood today photos. In the study, Yang-yi explained the functions of this new thing. Then he changed seats with Murphy and let her try it. She came over early to join in the fun. She had been stretching her neck and tiptoeing just now. Now that she saw her mother sitting in front of the computer, the little girl couldn't stay still. She excitedly squeezed into her mother's arms. I want to see it too. Let me play too, okay? However, the little girl was caught by a big hand. She cried out as her limbs were lifted into the air, and she was carried up. Oh, I'm going to fall. She giggled and quickly hugged her father's neck. You're getting more and more naughty. Yang-yi looked at his daughter dotingly and gently pinched her little nose. He said softly, You can't see it. Dad will hold you and watch it. He pulled a chair and sat down next to Mo Fei, and the little girl was put on his lap. Okay then. Cece found a comfortable position, half sitting and half lying in her father's arms. Then her black eyes rolled around, and no one knew what she was thinking. Under Yang-yi's guidance, Murphy registered an account and directly used her own name as the account name. Later, I'll get someone to authenticate you. In the future, you can use this account to interact with your fans. Of course, if you don't play often, you can let Mo Shaowan take over the operation management for you. Yang-yi knew Murphy's character. She was definitely not the kind of celebrity who would update her status every day. Fans. Do they also use this microbroadcasting? Murphy asked doubtfully. Of course, microbroadcasting will be used more and more in the future, just like SNS. Yang-yi said with certainty. Moreover, in the future, the microbroadcasting operation of celebrities will also be a great knowledge. Later, I'll teach Mo Shaowan so that she won't be stupid. Don't talk about her like that. Shaowan will be angry with you later. Murphy couldn't help but laugh. Papa, look. She suddenly cried out. After watching her mother's clumsy mouse operation for a while, the little girl had already lost interest in watching. She was half lying in her father's arms, kicking her legs and playing by herself. Being called by their daughter, Yang-yi and Murphy both looked down at her. They saw that the little girl had unknowingly pulled up her clothes, revealing her white belly. Then she pinched her belly, that was squeezed out because of this position. Hee Papa, look, I'm also the same as Exine Air. My belly is big. It's so fun. The little girl foolishly pinched her belly and laughed. She was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Murphy was stunned for a moment. She quickly reached out to pull down Shishi's clothes to cover her belly and said reproachfully, Shishi, how can a girl be like this? It's so unladylike. In the past, the little girl was very concerned about her image. Yang-yi was a little confused by Shishi's appearance just now. He reacted and said, Shishi, girls can't lift up their clothes and show it to others, do you know? Why? Exine also let us play with her belly. It's soft and fun. Shishi was very confused. She blinked her big innocent eyes and asked, Don't worry about what Exine does. Shishi, just remember Mom and Papa's words. You can't lift up your clothes. Murphy said seriously with a straight face. Shishi was still a little afraid of her mother's temper. The little girl pouted her small mouth and nodded obediently. Although it was just a small episode, Yang-yi took it seriously. Exine also let us play with her belly. The little girl's words kept echoing in Yang-yi's mind. He didn't know what Shishi was talking about, but when Yang-yi thought of how his daughter foolishly lifted up her clothes and revealed her small belly, his heart collapsed. The little girl was bored and ran out to play with the kittens. Yang-yi turned his head and said to Murphy seriously, Look at Shishi. How stupid is she? She doesn't realize the difference between girls and boys at all. So it's better to do it sooner rather than later. You'd better find some time to teach that lesson to Shishi. That lesson, of course, Murphy knew what Yang Yi was talking about. Yang Yi had already drawn the lesson materials with pictures and text before, but Murphy felt that it was a little difficult to talk about it, so it had been delayed. Now Murphy was also shocked by her daughter. From her daughter's behavior, the children in the kindergarten like Lan Xian didn't have the awareness of the difference between men and women, let alone the idea of protecting their own bodies. If she didn't teach Shishi well in this area, she was afraid that Shishi would unintentionally imitate some of the behaviors that were out of line when she played with other children. So Murphy's expression was a little heavy at the moment. She nodded solemnly. Let me take a look at those cards again. After dinner tomorrow night, I'll talk about it with Shishi, Murphy said. Yang Yi took a box from the bookshelf and opened it. Inside were the small cards that he had drawn for children's sex education. The cards were all cute cartoon figures. He thought that Shishi would be more receptive and have a deeper impression after seeing these cartoon figures. You've even added color? Murphy was a little surprised. Last time, when Yang Yi finished drawing, she glanced at the cards, and they weren't as colorful as the ones now. Yes, I was quite free a while ago. Yang Yi nodded to Murphy and said with a smile, let me tell you about the content inside. I'll help you organize your thoughts. Chapter 251. Before going to bed the next night, Murphy walked into the bedroom with a small card and closed the door behind her. Yang Yi was too embarrassed to tell his daughter about these things. He felt awkward listening to them, so he didn't come to the master bedroom today. The little girl couldn't listen to the story tonight. Cece had been rolling around on the bed for a while, just like the monkey that was wreaking havoc in heaven. However, at this time, she was lying on her back on the quilt and panting. When she heard the noise, she quickly turned over and sat up on the bed, her messy hair covering half of her small face. Murphy didn't allow Shishi to step on the quilt. It would mess up the quilt, so the little girl was a little guilty. She covered her smiling face and giggled to cover it up. However, Murphy didn't blame her this time. She lifted the quilt and sat on the bed. The little girl quickly got in and snuggled in her mother's arms. Then she looked around in confusion. Hey, where's Papa? Usually at this time, her father would come to tell Shishi stories. Before going to bed today, Mom will tell Shishi something else, okay? Murphy combed the little girl's messy hair and said softly, okay then. Shishi nodded obediently. The little girl was attracted by the stack of small cards in her mother's hand. There were colorful drawings. She asked curiously, Mom, what's this? This is what Mom wants to tell you today. How should a little girl protect herself? Murphy said softly, Shishi, you have to listen carefully. Okay then. The little girl turned over and sat up, leaning on her mother's arm. Come, let's look at the first card. Murphy opened the first card. There was a drawing of Shishi's favorite doll, but it looked much more delicate. After all, it was drawn by Yang Yi. The 3 flat points were marked with a colored pencil. Note 1. I like this, Shishi said with her eyes shining. Shishi, Mom is telling you very seriously. Don't worry about anything else. Look here, here, and here. Murphy pointed at these points and said, Shishi, you have to pay attention. These 3 places can't be touched by others. Why? Shishi asked in confusion. Because this is Shishi's most precious thing. It's much more precious than your big bear cub and your doll. You don't want others to play with your big bear cub and doll, right? Murphy gave an example. Well, she doesn't like others to play with my big cub. It will be damaged. Cece pouted her small mouth. Her train of thought was a little off track. But this was the effect she wanted. Yes, these places are more precious than your big bear cub. Shishi can't be touched by others, right? You have to protect them, right? Murphy took the opportunity to open the second small card. The second picture was drawn with very childish brushwork of a little girl with 2 ponytails. Her long skirt dragged on the ground, and the shadow of a light pink underwear could be seen in the diagonal shadow of the long skirt. Similarly, Mom and Papa will let Shishi wear clothes in these places. The little cutie, skirt, top and pants will be covered by these clothes. All the covered places can't be touched by others. Murphy pointed at the second small card and said very seriously. She didn't quite understand, but seeing her mother so serious, she nodded in confusion. I remember. Murphy took out the third card. This card had a picture of a Garfield cat with a strange smile, but the composition was even stranger. It used circles and squares, and then there were 4 upper limbs and 4 lower limbs. Murphy wanted to laugh when she saw this Garfield cat with a wicked smile. There was no Da Vinci in this world, so there was no classic painting of the Vitruvian Man. Murphy didn't know what Yang Yi was paying tribute to, but just this cat and those inferior hand-drawn mosaics were very interesting. Hey, it looks like Xiao Guai. The little girl blinked her big eyes and said to her mother in surprise. Its face is big, and its eyes are big, but Xiao Guai doesn't have so many hands. Well, this card. Mommy mainly wanted to tell Cici that if someone shows you these places that Mommy mentioned just now, you must not look at them. If Daddy and Mommy are by your side, you must find Daddy and Mommy immediately and tell them. If Mom and Dad aren't around, you must shout for help. Murphy pointed at the little girl at the bottom right corner of the card. It was easy to miss. The little girl had a dialogue bubble with the word, help written on it. Oh. Cici nodded her head as if she understood something. It was okay if the little girl didn't understand now. Her memory was very good. As long as she remembered these concepts, she would be able to recall them when she encountered something in the future. Moreover, using pictures to describe things could stimulate a child's memory. Next, the things that needed to be said on the 2 small cards were a little difficult to say, but Murphy paused for a moment and still flipped through them. This was very important. The first small card was a picture of 2 Calabash brothers. The big guy was hugging the small Calabash brother princess, and a spear was poking the Calabash brother princess chest. It was very vivid. Shishi, no matter what it is, don't let anyone poke anything on your body. Murphy said seriously. Poke. Shishi didn't understand this word. This is poking. Murphy used her finger to poke Shishi's chest, stomach, and calf. She didn't use much strength, but Shishi still curled up and giggled. Mom, don't. The little girl grabbed her mother's finger and laughed until she was out of breath. Yes, you must remember. You must say no. And you must run far away. Murphy struck while the iron was hot. Okay. The little girl nodded quickly. You can't eat anything that others give you. Lollipops, carrots, cucumbers, you can't eat anything. Murphy flipped to the next card. Yang Yi really drew 3 different cartoon figures on it, a little rabbit, and a little bear, and then chewed on the 3 examples that Murphy gave. Can't I eat lollipops? Shishi asked in confusion. No, Shishi can only eat what Papa and Mom buy for you, or what Papa and Mom allow you to eat. Murphy rubbed the little girl's head and said softly, you can tell Papa what you want to eat, and he will buy it for you. Anyway, you can't eat what others give you. You can't open your mouth no matter what others give you. Shishi remembered, but she was still thinking about lollipops. The little girl said innocently, Papa will make a lot of delicious food for me, so Shishi won't eat what others give me. Well, that's right. Murphy nodded with relief and then flipped to the new card. Chapter 252. On the new card, there was a little girl with her hair tied up in a bun and carrying a school bag. Then, there was a wretched uncle wearing a fisherman's hat and round-rimmed sunglasses holding a lollipop. The narrator said, Good girl, follow uncle, and I'll give you a candy. Murphy had to explain in detail. She first asked, Shishi, if someone wants to take you to a remote place, how will you respond? What are we going to do? Shishi asked curiously. No, you can't do that. If someone you don't know says, Little girl, uncle or auntie will take you to a fun place, you must refuse him, no matter what it is for. Murphy educated her. Mama, I know. Shishi's eyes lit up. She raised her little arms and said happily, Papa wants me not to listen to others and not to play with others. Yes. You must not agree. Besides, it's not just strangers. Murphy said seriously. Teachers can't do that. Uncles, you know, if they want to take you somewhere, you can't do that. Shishi must not go with them. And you must tell Papa or Mom. Shishi nodded vigorously. Anyway, Murphy was almost done. She turned the last 2 cards and said, Shishi, you must remember this. If something strange happens, you must tell Papa and Mom. No matter who it is, whether it's someone you don't know or someone you know, whether it's an adult or a child, no matter what strange things they say to you, or what strange things they do, or what strange things they show you, you must tell Papa and Mom. For example, this card was very strange. There was a wretched little boy on it, and he seemed to be wearing pants that were very similar to an elephant's head. The long elephant's trunk was swinging. There was no crayon Shinchan in this world. Obviously, Murphy and Shishi did not know this joke, but it was enough to show the image. Shishi nodded obediently at her mother. Murphy rubbed the little girl's head and said, That's right. Tell Papa Mom. Papa Mom will definitely protect you. Yeah, I know. The little girl smiled sweetly and hugged her mother's waist. Papa told me that he will protect Shishi just like how Sun Wukong protects Tang Sanzang. He will not let the monster eat Shishi. Good girl, go to sleep. Murphy smiled with relief. After she coaxed Shishi to sleep, she put away the small card that Yang Yi had carefully made. Although the stack of small cards had already completed their mission, Yang Yi had looked up a lot of information, and then spent a lot of time designing before drawing them stroke by stroke. Murphy liked them very much and wanted to keep them for her own collection. Boss, do you know that your books are sold out? Fu Jun, who had not dared to face Yang Yi for a while, finally called. He proudly reported the good news to Yang Yi. Aren't they still on the best-selling list? Yang Yi asked, puzzled. He had learned about this matter from his editor, Chang Zi, a few days ago in SNS. Chang Zi told him that although it had been a few months, the physical sales of these 2 books were still strong, and they could be ranked in the top 20 on the monthly list. It's not those 2 books. Shishi's bedtime story is popular. Do you know that your daughter is popular? Fu Jun smiled proudly. Now all the children in China are envious of the little girl named Shishi. They all want to be your daughter. Haha. Was he going to become the national father? Is there such a thing? Yang Yi had already reached the point where he was not shocked by honor or disgrace, but he was very curious. Weren't they unable to sell before? How did they become popular all of a sudden? Fu Jun was a little embarrassed. He was embarrassed to say that the operation planners of his publishing house were too stupid, so he could only pick a few things to say. Not many people read it before, but then a columnist named Yu Qian and Yang Cheng recommended your books in the newspaper. Later on, the reputation of your books slowly rose. We promoted the online store and advertised a lot, attracting a lot of customers. Now not only do children like to read it, but many adults also like to read your fairy tales. You advertised a lot? So the online store's business is very good now? Yang Yi was deep in thought. Yes, listen to me first. Let me tell you something very interesting. Fu Jun was amused when he thought about it. He chuckled and said, Didn't many readers like Cece's bedtime story? They even found your 2 military novels based on your name. In the end, when they bought it, some of them even called back to complain to the customer service. What were they complaining about? This isn't the car to kindergarten. Sob, 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 you're lying to me. I want to get off. Of course, this was just a joke, but it was almost the same. Some readers who did not like fighting and killing complained that these books were not suitable for their children. They even asked if there was a mistake. Yang Yi, who wrote fairy tales, and Yang Yi, who wrote Drawing Sword, were 2 people with the same name. Fu Jun was even more proud of himself than Yang Yi when he talked about these things. It was as if he, not Yang Yi, was the one who wrote these books. You called just in time. I have a new idea about the development of the Sahara online store. Are you interested in hearing it? Yang Yi did not beat around the bush and went straight to the topic. What new idea? Fu Jun was interested. Over the past few months, it could be said that Fu Jun was convinced by Yang Yi. Almost all of the development ideas that Yang Yi imparted to him had played a very good role in the actual operation. For example, the new operation logic of the online bookstore's webpage greatly reduced the difficulty for new customers to get started, thus promoting the increase in sales. Another example was the online bookstore's name change to the online store, moving from a single book sales to a diversified development path. This choice was obviously the right one. After increasing the sales of clothing, bags, infant products, and other products, the number of visits and profits of the online store could be said to have soared. The multiple product lines even promoted each other, increasing each other's sales. Fu-Jun also admired the new online banking model that Yang Yi asked him to work as a go-between with several banks. It directly put the online economy on a new trajectory. More people were willing to spend online through online banking. Not only was online shopping in the Sahara online store more convenient, but other internet companies, except for third-party payment companies, were also able to profit from this wave. This allowed Fu-Jun to enjoy a good reputation in the industry. Now that Yang Yi had a new idea, how could Fu-Jun, who had tasted the sweetness, not be overjoyed? Open up sales channels for various types of music records. Yang Yi said lightly, "At present, the only music websites only provide single downloads. No one can buy physical records from any website. Our Sahara online store can fill this gap." Chapter 253. However, Yang Yi's proposal was not fully approved by Fu-Jun. He frowned, thought for a while, and said, "Record sales are not as simple as you think, Yang Yi. Basically, the major record companies control the distribution channels. If we want to sell records, we can't bypass their restrictions. We're not going to do distribution. We're going to do the same business as bookstores and video stores. We won't produce books or records, but we'll be sales agents." Yang Yi explained, "It's just like the books sold in online stores are not all books from Sahara Publishing House." "I understand." Fu-Jun patted his head, secretly thinking that he was thinking too much. However, Fu-Jun didn't think too much about it. Yang Yi's next words revealed the true purpose of his proposal. "However, this is only for now. We can cooperate with these record distribution companies in the early stages, but we have to steal from them and get the rules and corresponding resources for record distribution. When the time is right, we can also establish our own distribution channels." "Your own distribution channel?" Fu-Jun asked in surprise. His heart started to beat faster. "Yes." Yang Yi's tone was still calm at the moment, and he seemed to be unperturbed on the phone. "We'll take another path and do an internet-style distribution channel. Moreover, our main target is not the large entertainment companies. We won't fight with the current record companies for this cake. We'll be the distribution channel for independent musicians that they look down on, so that everyone who likes music can release their records." Fu-Jun sucked in a breath of air. He could see Yang Yi's deeply hidden ambition in this. Of course, Fu-Jun was still not sure whether independent musicians' records would be welcomed by the market. The benefits of this distribution channel were difficult to estimate, but Fu-Jun was persuaded by Yang Yi. This was a very interesting goal. Not only records but also movies, videos, and books. We can do an internet-style distribution channel, giving individual creators or small companies with no background a platform to show themselves. Yang Yi smiled slightly. "It's just like what Chiyu did with the web novel. Believe me, the creative ability of billions of people will make Sahara Publishing House take off completely." Although Yang Yi's words were not passionate at all, Fu-Jun himself was surging with excitement. Good. I'll call someone for a meeting in a while," Fu-Jun said excitedly. Of course, there was no need for Yang Yi to come up with the actual plan for Fu-Jun. Fu-Jun was not an idiot boss, so he would naturally organize his planning team to study it. He would also wisely hide the grand plan that Yang Yi mentioned. Now all he needed to do was to establish a good relationship with the record company, and get them to sell the internet to Sahara Online Mall. "Don't worry, I have a gadget here that I recommend you and your employees to try. It's quite fun." Yang Yi smiled. "It's called micro-broadcasting. It's something that my people have recently developed." Although Yang Yi had high hopes for micro-broadcasting, its development was still relatively slow after it was developed. It could not even catch up with the promotion of another product of the same project. Facebook had already become popular in the campus of Jiang City Media University. The path it took seemed to be similar to Facebook in that time and space. After all, it was a plan provided by Yang Yi. However, it was slightly different under Mao Peifu's adjustment. There was no use of hacking techniques to steal the registration photos of female students that might cause disgust. Mao Peifu made use of her connections and Yang Yi's financial support to organize a campus bell election in the School of Business Media. Mao Peifu had asked for the consent of all the beautiful students in the School of Business Media, who were on the list. They had signed contracts and paid remuneration. Of course, they had also provided the most beautiful photos that they had taken. It was definitely not comparable to those ID photos. Although he wasn't part of the staff, Guozi had volunteered to be part of the publicity staff after he learned about senior sister Mao Peifu's plan from Ding Xiang. He loved being evaluated as the most beautiful girl in the academy. With Guozi jumping up and down waving the flag and shouting, coupled with the campus bell election, a large number of registered users flooded into Facebook. Most of them were boys, but there were also many girls who came to watch the fun. Moreover, it was not only the students of the School of Business Media. Students from other faculties also joined in excitedly. They soon discovered the benefits of Facebook. Those beautiful students were real. By clicking on their photos, they could enter their homepage. They could see the photos that they posted in their albums and read their diaries to understand what kind of people they were. There was a guy who was as shameless as Guozi on his homepage. I successfully added them. I think I'm in love. The first selection came to an end quickly. Everyone had different preferences, and the results of the selection would naturally be controversial. This controversy was good because it would continue to bring popularity to Facebook. Of course, after participating in the campus bell election, the boys couldn't sit still. They all expressed that they would hold a campus bell election for their faculties too. More voices said, "There are no real beauties in the School of Business Media. The real beauties are in the film school. If there's a selection, how can we leave out the beauties from the film school?" The voices for the beauties from the film school to join in were getting louder and louder. Mao Peifu and her team naturally wouldn't disappoint everyone. This time, if they were going to do it, they would do it big. Rivertown Media University Goddess Selection. Obviously, Mao Peifu couldn't use her connections and monetary rewards to get the beauties from the School of Business Media to join in. Rivertown Media University was too big. There were too many girls and beauties. If they were to talk to them one by one, Mao Peifu and her team wouldn't be able to do it even if they were exhausted. However, Mao Peifu was after all the vice president of the student union. Although she had resigned, she had rich experience in student activities and had strong connections. Soon, Mao Peifu pulled the strings and got Facebook to sponsor a big event with the student union of Rivertown Media University. Of course, it wasn't the tacky campus bell election. Instead, it was a makeover and a goddess selection that competed on talent and looks. It was divided into 2 rounds. First, there would be an online voting on Facebook to choose 20 beauties. Then, there would be a large-scale live Rivertown Media University Goddess Selection Gala, in the stadium of 10,000 people. They would be allowed to showcase their talents on the spot. The judges would give marks and online voting. Mobile phones could be used to vote through Facebook. In the end, the first, second, and third place would be selected. Of course, Mao Peifu had also provided a huge budget for this event. In addition to the prize pool of 100,000 yuan for the first, second, and third place, there were also some lucky draw activities in the first round of the selection to stimulate the voting. A professional team was hired to plan, decorate, and direct the gala. Lastly, there was also a huge sponsorship for the Student Union of Rivertown Media University. Mao Peifu had used no less than 500,000 yuan for this event. Although this event was still in progress, the generous rewards and the honor of being a beautiful and intelligent goddess had already stimulated many girls to sign up. Their participation had also greatly stimulated more boys to register as Facebook users. It wasn't just Rivertown Media University. Boys from other universities in Tingshan District, and even other universities who had heard the news on the internet had also come. The number of registered Facebook users was increasing rapidly every day. Although they were only here to look at the beauties, they would eventually discover the difference between Facebook and other blogging websites. This wasn't a simple blogging website. It was a personal homepage that had a certain level of privacy and could be used to build one's own network. One could post photos to one's friends, publish one's diary, and even purely use it as a place to publish one's own private information. How could such a fun Facebook not be popular? Chapter 254. Unknowingly, it had already been the month of bachelors. Jiangqing, which had entered late autumn, had already touched the traces of winter, especially after the setting sun disappeared at the end of the horizon. The bleak cold wind began to howl between the buildings, destroying the already bald branches. The pedestrians on the road couldn't help but shiver when they heard the sound. They wrapped themselves in windbreakers and walked 2 steps faster. Fortunately, the house was warmer. Yang Yi had already installed the home heating equipment for Xi. "Papa, hurry up, hurry up. Mom is going to be on TV." That night, Yang Yi, who hadn't finished his dinner, was urged by the little girl. He had to put down his bowl and chopsticks and was dragged by Xi little hand to the living room. They sat on the sofa and watched the live broadcast on TV. The TV was broadcasting Shanghai TV's Music Power Ranking. This program was currently one of the 3 most authoritative ranking programs in the Chinese music industry. When a singer released a new song, they would need to appear on 3 ranking shows one after another to fight for a higher ranking for their song. That way, they would be able to gain more exposure. The Music Power Ranking program was set in a small music hall. There were supporting fans at the scene, shouting as if they were watching a concert. Moreover, the whole process was broadcast in the form of a live broadcast. It was a special test of the singer's live performance. It could also be said that the so-called recording studio singers couldn't hide from such a program. Of course, this was also a special test of the singer's psychological endurance. Some singers who were too nervous would also make a fool of themselves on the program. These were inevitable. Although Murphy hadn't released a new album yet, she had released a single. Naturally, she had to go for Coming Across the Sea to See You. On TV, the host was interviewing Murphy. She sat next to her father, her little hand holding her father's finger. She was more nervous than anyone else. "Papa, is Mom going to sing?" the little girl asked. "Yes." Yang Yi patted Shishi's little head and smiled gently. "When will she sing?" The little girl was a little impatient. "Sure, she will sing now." Yang Yi comforted his daughter and focused on the TV. In fact, he was also looking forward to Murphy's live performance. He really liked watching Murphy sing his songs. "Then, let's invite Murphy to perform I Came Across the Ocean to See You that everyone has been waiting for." The host finally gave up the stage, and the crowd cheered. There were still some Murphy fans who came to the venue. Although the number was not as many as the popular singers, they still raised their support cards high up in the air for Murphy. When the camera panned to the audience, the flashing lights of the 2 words Murphy made people feel that Murphy was not alone. But Murphy was alone on the stage. There was no choreography for this song. On the big stage, the lights were bright, and she was all alone. However, Mo Fei's expression was very calm, just like when she was on the show, indifferent, cold, and had a very low sense of presence. If it weren't for her outstanding appearance and extraordinary temperament, she would probably be ignored by others. "For you, I used half a year's savings to come across the ocean to see you." Finally, after the prelude, Murphy raised the microphone and sang a little sadly under the white fog on both sides. Her ethereal and sad voice penetrated the hearts of the fans present, and the audience in front of the TV like an electric shock. So it's this song. The fans of other stars on the scene may not know Mo Fei very well, but these days, they still heard the people around them humming Mo Fei's popular song. So when they heard the first line of the song, their eyes suddenly lit up. For this gathering, I even practiced my breathing repeatedly when we meet. Mo Fei's passionate singing made these people's bodies sway uncontrollably. The light sticks in their hands, which were only held for their idols, also couldn't help but be lifted up by the joy in their hearts. As if there were more and more support, the stage was dimmed, and the stars below looked like a sea of stars. The climax of the song was not, "I came across the sea to see you," nor was it the sudden high-pitched memories, they always accumulate slowly. But after the high-pitched, I couldn't hold back my tears even when I was in the most desperate. Murphy paused, and with the newly added violin accompaniment, she sighed and sang. In a strange city in a familiar corner. That sobbing voice suddenly gave the audience goosebumps. It's so nice. Such a sad song, such a beautiful voice. Isn't it worth everyone turning around for her? Vote. Vote, vote, vote. Buy songs? Bye, bye, bye. Watching you go away in the wind and sand. I'm so sad that I can't help myself. The voice was already floating with the wind and sand. Some girls with shallow tear ducts looking at Mo Fei, who was alone on the stage, and listening to her singing as if she was trying her best to be strong, were instantly moved to tears. Passers-by turned fans. I'm afraid this is the moment, Murphy's song. The first people who heard it was sad, but Yang Yi, who was sitting in front of the TV, heard it many times. This time he heard Murphy's second emotion overlapping the first one. Sweetness. I hope I can accompany you for 1,000 miles until the end of the world, and stay with you for a lifetime. This stupid woman, isn't the sweet smile she rarely shows in public? Murphy sang on the stage to her heart's content. Perhaps she didn't know that at this moment, there was a little person in front of the TV looking at her with admiration. After her mother started singing, she clenched her father's fingers. She was actually a little worried for her mother. But with Murphy singing freely, she's nervousness slowly relaxed. The little girl watched her mother sing loudly on the stage, and her little body couldn't help but twist. Mom is too amazing. The feelings of worship almost filled the little girl's little heart, but she was still focused on watching her mother's performance. She didn't shout out, as if she was afraid that it would affect her mother. I will stay with you for the rest of my life. In the end, Mo Fei used her excellent breath to drag out the last syllable, until it was so weak that it was almost inaudible. It was not to show off her skill, but to fully express her reluctance to part with him at the end. The accompaniment played a lonely part in the end before it slowly came to an end. When the accompaniment ended, Murphy held the microphone and bowed deeply to the fans she had missed for a long time. Walala! Almost all the audience, no matter the fans, stood up at this moment and excitedly applauded Murphy. They applauded her song that moved them. The applause didn't stop for a long time. Murphy could only bow again. When she raised her head again, her emotions couldn't help but fluctuate. Several senior music hosts from Shanghai TV station who were waiting below the stage to host saw this scene, and could only stop in their tracks and wait for the applause to stop. They looked at the tearful Murphy on the stage, and one of the hosts couldn't help but sigh. She's back. Yes, how long has it been since they saw Murphy have so many audience members applauding and cheering for her? The last time was probably when Strangers was released, right? Yes, the Chinese music industry, she's back. Chapter 255. De la de la. Oh yeah, in Beijing, the taxi driver in front was already humming along with the melody on the car radio. For you, I used half a year's savings. Murphy was on fire. After she appeared on the 3 major music chart shows and sang Coming Across the Ocean to See You, the song became a hit as well. This was completely different from the popularity of fast music. At that time, the listeners who liked the song only relied on their memories of the show's reruns and word of mouth to spread the song. The ratings of the 3 major music chart shows were naturally not something that fast music could compare with. Moreover, this time, the show also had a CD of the single. As the song became more popular, all the major radio stations began to play the song. However, while the driver was humming happily, the passenger in the back was annoyed. She patted the front seat and said, "Hey uncle, can you stop singing? Not only is your singing terrible, but you're also swaying around. Even if you don't want to live, I still want to live, okay?" The driver in the front seat paused and stopped singing. However, it wasn't that he was apologizing. The big men in Beijing had bad tempers. Now that he was being scolded by this woman, he was a little annoyed. His expression kept changing, and he was struggling whether to scold her back or not to argue with her. Only Murphy's sad singing could be heard in the car. It was very awkward. Fortunately, Another older woman in the back seat pulled her angry companion and said reproachfully, Jean, Qian, don't cause trouble. Then she humbled herself and apologized to the driver. Hey, it's not a big deal. Okay, tell your friend to pay attention to her words in the future. In Beijing, if she makes a fuss, she'll be punished. The driver's anger came and went quickly. He waved his hand and laughed heartily. Yes, you're right, Jianchua said with a smile. The two passengers in the car were Zhen Muqian, and her manager, Jianchua. The two of them had come to Beijing to participate in a show to promote Zhen Muqian's new album. Obviously, the strength and effect of the promotion was far less than that of Murphy, who had only sung one song. Zhen Muqian looked like she had been wronged. She didn't explode until they returned to the hotel. She threw herself on the bed and pretended to cry. Sister Chow, you're still helping the driver to scold me. Zhen, you're a celebrity now. You have to be more careful with what you do. Don't let your temper get the best of you. Jianchua said to Zhen Muqian as she hung up the clothes. I know, but he didn't recognize me, right? Zhen Muqian said, feeling somewhat unhappy. He didn't recognize you, but what if he makes a big deal out of it? Jianchua said seriously, no matter what the occasion is, you have to pay special attention to your image. You are now a sweet and well-behaved actress, not a shrew. Zhen Muqian understood, but she was still envious and jealous. She couldn't let go of her anger. Now that she saw Jianchua being so serious, she pouted and said reluctantly, I know, Sister Chow. I know you're wronged, but you're developing well. You're a bit slow, but one day, you'll surpass Murphy. Jianchua sat down and said gently. Zhen Muqian felt wronged. Sister Chow, I came across the ocean to see you was originally my song Sob Sob. In Zhen Muqian's opinion, this song was originally in her hands, but it disappeared without a trace. If it was her who sang this song, then the person who was popular all over the country and was being chased by this damn driver should be her, Zhen, not Mo Fei. Okay, don't think too much about it. Who told Murphy to be so overbearing? The company isn't like it was a month ago. Sister Ling is completely on Murphy's side and gives her all the resources. Jianchua sighed. You can only swallow this anger. If you want to vent, wait until you become a celebrity and surpass Murphy, Jianchua said as she patted Zhen Muqian's back. Zhen Muqian pouted, but in his heart, he secretly remembered the resentment at this moment. I heard that you've been helping Mao Peifu promote her Facebook? Do you want me to give you a salary as well? It's considered a part-time job. Mao Peifu said that you're very useful. Yang Yi teased Guizi. The little fatty was breaking open a cupcake and started eating from the soft bread in the middle. He puffed out his mouth and said with difficulty, No need, I'm only helping out because of you, Brother Yang. It's for friendship. Che, you just want to see more beauties. That's why you're so enthusiastic. Ding Xiang walked by and mercilessly exposed him. Sister Mao told me a long time ago. Who doesn't know about your perverted heart? That's not it. Guizi said with a red face. If I'm just looking at beauties, why would I vote for you? This time it was Ding Xiang's turn to blush. Last time, because there weren't many girls in the business media school, Ding Xiang was pulled to make up the numbers. She wore a coffee shop uniform for the photo shoot. Needless to say, Ding Xiang, who didn't have outstanding looks, stood in front of the camera and took a set of photos. After some editing, adding light, and whitening by a computer expert, she was actually as lovely as the neighbor's little sister. When the final results came out, although Ding Xiang was still far from first place, she still squeezed into the top 10. Of course, Guizi would always proudly say that all the credit was his in front of Ding Xiang. If he didn't pull votes for Ding Xiang wouldn't have become one of the top 10 beauties of the business media school. Ding Xiang didn't want to be one of the top 10 beauties. Every time she heard this, she couldn't wait to beat Guizi up. Yang Yi looked at them and laughed. When Guizi could eat the cake in peace, he said, hiring students to do campus promotions is a new idea I gave to Mao Peifu. After all, our eyes won't only be on Jiangchuan. Students from universities all over the country are our initial potential customers. So this plan will continue, and it will go through the formal hiring process. Since you've done so much work for Mao Peifu, it's only right that we give you some compensation. Guozi waved his hand and said, "No need, Brother Yang. You know that my family doesn't lack money." His eyes suddenly rolled, and he said with a smile, "Brother Yang, how about this? You don't have to give me money. Anyway, I can eat all the cakes in this shop. Is that okay?" Guozi especially liked the cupcakes that Ding Xiang made. Although he was fooling around at the film school every day, he still came over to buy cupcakes from time to time. However, Ding Xiang limited the amount of cupcakes he could buy. He could only buy one cupcake a day. In your dreams, Brother Yang, you can eat all the cakes here. Over the years, won't you be eating Brother Yang's money? Ding Xiang heard him and immediately said, "It's not like I don't want to pay. I'll still pay. I just don't want to only eat one cake at a time." The little fatty was greedy. Ding Xiang turned her head and said to Yang Yi, "Brother Yang, you can't agree to eat this kind of dessert every day. Look at how fat he is. He still hasn't lost weight." Indeed. Although Guozi had lost a lot of weight when he came back from Beijing, after the military training, he didn't exercise much. He gradually gained back his weight and his skin color returned. That was why Ding Xiang limited his purchases. Guozi looked at Yang Yi pleadingly. "Brother Yang, please do a good deed. Anyway, the cakes in the shop can't be sold. It's a waste to keep them. Why don't you sell them to me? I can even help you promote them." "Who said they can't be sold?" Ding Xiang said with a lack of confidence. Yang Yi smiled and spread his hands at Guozi. "I can't do anything about that. The cakes were made by Ding Xiang. If she doesn't agree, I can't say anything." "Ah!" Guozi screamed. There was no other way. The little fatty could only lick the crumbs on the paper cup in his hand. It was so miserable. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.